The president knows this is wrong, and it's not defensible. He's violating the Constitution. He's exercising power that doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the American people.
Republican lawmakers on the offensive, some now launching investigations into the failures of 3 of those state-run Obamacare exchanges. Dick Morris and Alan West are here to discuss the defensive posture now held by the Democrats.
What happens here matters to every working American, right down to the cost of food that you put on your table.
And more mixed messages coming from the president, using a worsening drought in California to highlight climate change, then hitting the links to play a couple of rounds on a water-soaked desert golf course. What was he thinking? Former presidential candidate Pat Buchanan is here for his take.
So Iran must meet this test. If it does, the Middle East will be a safer place, free from the fear of a nuclear arms race. And diplomatic engagement, my friends, backed by sanctions and other options, will have proved its worth.
And talks opening in the first round of negotiations for a long-term nuke deal between Iran and 6 world powers, including the United States. But doubts remain. Can Secretary Kerry piece together a deal on the threat of real WMDs? America's Forum starts right now. Hello and welcome to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Topping today's headlines, more from the Secretary of State talking about climate change, which he called a weapon of mass destruction.
We certainly should not allow more time to be wasted by those who want to sit around debating whose responsibility it is to deal with this threat while we come closer and closer to the point of no return.
And the administration using recent severe weather threats here in the United States to push their climate change agenda at home and abroad. The Secretary of State has ordered all U.S. embassies to tackle climate change in their host countries. But there was also some backlash here as well. Here's Tennessee Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn.
There is not agreement around the fact of exactly what is causing this. Even the president's own Science and Technology Office head, Mr. Holdren, says no one single weather event is due specifically to climate change.
Blackburn, a vice chair on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, on Meet the Press right there. She's firing back at the White House's climate change campaign and science guy Bill Nye. There is more to this debate than just election year politics. And what would the Obama administration's focus on fossil fuel reduction mean for our economy? We now know that some big money men are getting involved on the campaign from the left. In today's New York Times, the headline reads, financier plans big ad campaign on climate change. Quote, a billionaire retired investor is forging plans to spend as much as $100 million during the 2014 election, seeking to pressure federal and state officials to enact climate change measures through a hard-edged campaign of attack ads against governors and lawmakers. In early February, Mr. Stryer gathered 24 of the country's leading liberal donors and environmental philanthropists to his 1,800 square acre ranch in Pescadero, California, which raises prime grass-fed beef, to talk to them, to join his efforts. People involved in the discussion say Mr. Stryer is seeking to raise $50 million from other donors to match $50 million of his own on this campaign. Also, more now for you on the GOP lawmakers launching an investigation into the failure of those state-run Obamacare exchanges in Oregon, Maryland, and Massachusetts. Republicans, led by Oregon Congressman Greg Walden, are putting these web-based insurance marketplaces under the microscope for functional failures and exorbitant costs that have been left for taxpayers to pick up. Members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee sent a letter to the Government Accountability Office asking for a review of $304 million in federal grant money that the botched websites have received. In Oregon, the total online enrollment number is zero. Not a single person has enrolled online, leaving the state completely dependent on paper applications. It's 2014, people. But Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius is still defending the president's signature piece of legislation. Here she is speaking recently in Orlando.
The city is better off, families are better off, communities are better off if people have affordable health coverage. And the city bears the cost of people who don't have affordable health coverage. Employees are less productive on their jobs. Kids are less able to learn in school. People have to take more time off. Families don't get the care they need. So,
All right, so still all that an issue here, but we'll get to that in just a second with Mr. Morris and Mr. West. But first, our top story. We have just passed the 5-year anniversary of the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, the stimulus, the shovel-ready jobs. Remember all that good stuff? Here is the president from his latest web address trying to remind all of us about it, talking about his recent executive action on minimum wage.
The opportunity agenda I've laid out is built on more new jobs that pay good wages, better training for folks to fill those jobs, a smarter education for our kids, and making sure honest work is rewarded. And the action I took this week will reward hard work for more Americans.
But will it? The government's own figures tell us the employment picture is supposedly getting better. The most recent jobs report had the official non-farm payroll number at 6.6% unemployment. Well, despite all that, how does the American public feel about the employment situation, about the economy, about the recovery after the Great Recession? During a midterm election year, perception and feeling matter. Take a look for yourselves. A damning report here coming from Gallup. Jobs and unemployment are back atop the list of problems facing Americans. According to a brand new poll from Gallup, almost 1 in 4 Americans rank the issue as their gravest concern. The overall economy ranks at number 2, with 20% saying that is the biggest problem. The government and politicians had topped the list since the government shut down back in October, according to Gallup. Concerns about the government, at least as measured by the responses to this open-ended question, have faded since then. The jump was most pronounced among Republicans, from 11% naming jobs and unemployment in January to 24% in February. Joining me to talk more about this, former Congressman Allen West, Dick Morris, political advisor. Guys, this has to be a damning report for the Obama administration in more ways than one. Dick, if you had this information now and you're sitting in the White House advising the president, what do you tell him?
Well, he's done a very good job of talking over the recession and trying to pretend that it isn't happening and that we're in recovery. And for 5 years, he's been sort of saying the same thing. The fact is that the same number of jobs were created in 13 as in 12 as in 11. And if anything, the pace has slowed so far in 14. So there is no recovery. There never was a recovery. And I think that he's done a very good job of talking over that and trying to let people believe there is a recovery.
And Alan, why has the president been able to do that? Why has the GOP caucus not held this in his face?
Well, for one thing, he's been enabled by a very complicit media that allows him to get away with that. But what I would look at is on the Sunday before the 5th anniversary of the stimulus, what were all the Democrats talking about on the Sunday talk shows? They were talking about climate change. They weren't talking about the recovery. They weren't talking about the success of the stimulus. As a matter of fact, the president wasn't even in Washington, D.C. on Monday on this 5th anniversary. He was out playing golf. So knowing how the president is, if this was such a success, there would have been a big hoopla. There would have been, a staged event with people as backdrops, and he would have been talking about all the great things. They're running away from this because they know it has not been successful. They're asking for an extension of unemployment benefits. If the economy is recovering, you don't do that. Dick just talked about the fact that the workforce participation rate, if it were the same as it was when he came in, our unemployment rate would be closer to 11 or 12%.
I think 14 is the number.
Yeah, 14. And so the GOP needs to go on offense, which is something they just have a problem doing.
But Alan's right. The key here is the unemployment rate. The fact that it's calculated on those looking for work and does not count 10 million people who've given up looking for work
when we look at that
under this administration means that the media can focus on the reduction. And now it's 6.6. It used to be 10. Wow, that's a recovery. In fact, there's no recovery. It's just that more and more people have given up looking for work.
Well, what this poll says to me is that no matter how many numbers are thrown up on the screen, whether it's 6.6% or otherwise, that the American people aren't feeling the recovery. Yeah. And as you know, Dick, it's the economy, stupid, and when people go to the ballot box, there's going to be an impact here.
I think that's true, but I think it's a little bit muted, John, because what this president has done is to replace employment with entitlement, because his goal is no longer to end unemployment. It's to have people on entitlements, so they vote for the Democratic Party to sustain those entitlements. And those folks who've given up looking for work, who are damn close to half the labor force at this time, 92 million out of 235 million, those folks don't care about whether jobs are created. They just want to know if the checks come in each month.
And it's interesting because what you just saw this administration come out and say is basically it's okay to not be working. It's okay to have more time at
choice.
home. It's a choice. We
what
don't want you to be trapped by a job, and we'll give you a government subsidy.
And when
check.
we heard Kathleen Sebelius right there talking about, families are better off because of this, I mean,
yeah.
clearly she has to, toe that line.
That's
but
the spin.
Real quickly before we go to break, your take on it. How were you upset? Does it anger you, or have you become used to that?
Well, I think it is offensive to the American people because, it is almost insulting that this administration believes that they're that stupid. The people on the ground know that Main Street knows that things are not recovering, and most people on Main Street still think that we're in a recession.
All right, Alan, we'll be right back with more. Dick, we'll have more from you as we want to talk about John Kerry overseas as well. We want to hear from everyone else as well. You can always reach us on our social media platforms. Direct message me at Twitter at John Bachman, John B_Newsmax, for all of us here at Newsmax TV, at Newsmax TV. We'll be right back after this.
Imagine if you had a secret code for making money, a code buried deep within biblical texts.
A code that certain investment titans have quietly exploited to amass billions.
And what if this code could be used by you today to unlock vast amounts of wealth safely and ethically?
Investment expert and former pastor Sean Hyman says there is such a code. He calls it the Biblical Money Code. Sean credits this code for helping him turn his father's $40,000 retirement account into $396,000.
And today, you have the chance to tap into this life-changing biblical money code by visiting moneycode40.com.
That's moneycode, the number 40.com.
At moneycode40.com, you will find a free video that describes how you could use this biblical code in your own life to get out of debt and invest for profits.
That's moneycode40.com.
Meet John and Nancy. Like many people, John and Nancy have spent their whole lives working hard, saving their money and investing wisely, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But the reality is, today's world is not the same as it was. John and Nancy's stocks have taken them on a serious roller coaster ride, and it's all but destroyed their retirement funds. Their house is not even close to being worth what they paid, and to boot, their middle-class paychecks no longer cover their costs. All that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. In fact, they are no longer thinking about when they will retire, they're wondering if they'll retire. Then one day, John and Nancy heard about a man named Tom Hutchison, a veteran of Wall Street for over 2 decades. Tom noticed that the wealthy invested differently than normal people, and their methods seemed to be a secret they didn't want to share. So Tom left his job, compiled the strategies, and published them in the controversial book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. John and Nancy immediately picked up a copy, began investing, and never looked back. Thanks to Powerful Secrets, John and Nancy now have investments that pay up to 20% a year. They learned about unique tax-advantaged investments, and their favorite chapter revealed a strategy that anyone can use to turn $50,000 into $1 million. Now, John and Nancy have control of their financial future in this new reality, and they have peace of mind about their investments that they never had before. Best of all, they are back on track to a secure retirement. To get your free copy of the book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns, simply visit www.myfinancialage.org.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom.
By the content of their character. Ask not what your
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Back with us for another segment, former Congressman Alan West, political advisor Dick Morris. Gentlemen, we'll have more of this discussion with you in just a second. But real quickly, I want to talk about more fallout now from the NSA scandal. Angela Merkel is proposing a new internet in Europe, And who can blame her after it was revealed through leaks by Edward Snowden that the U.S. had listened in on her personal cell phone calls? Merkel says she'll discuss the issue this week with French President Francois Hollande. Meanwhile, President Obama continues to try to ease fears, global fears, of the encroaching U.S. surveillance apparatus.
The bottom line is that people around the world, regardless of their nationality, should know that the United States is not spying on ordinary people who don't threaten our national security. And that we take their privacy concerns into account in our policies and procedures.
Now, Merkel and the rest of the European Union seem unmoved by the president's recent words here. The idea of this European internet is to avoid emails and other data from passing through servers here in the United States. Well, Dick, we know this is a big issue. It's very popular to talk about in the media in Europe. Is this a show that we're going to have some real payback here as this information getting out, or is this more or less something that Merkel and other leaders are talking about because it's popular among the European people?
Payback, they mean it. Yesterday, there was a revelation by Snowden that the NSA tapped the phones of a law firm that represented Indonesia in a trade dispute with the United States. Is that national security? Is that terrorism? And the point is that the NSA and the Obama administration and the Bush administration approached this issue with blinders. Their sole issue was the most effective surveillance possible. They didn't look at the ancillary effect. And now the United States, which has derived enormous advantage from being the global center of the Internet, the global cop through whom all the exchanges go, the switchboard, now has so abused that power that we're about to lose it.
Yeah, it's scary. And Alan, on the other hand, there have been folks that said, Merkel's maybe playing coy here, feigning this outrage that we were listening in on her calls. What's your take on that position?
Well, these are the unintended consequences. You just have Victoria Nuland with her little misspeaking about, blank the EU. This is an opportunity for them to take advantage of a situation to promote, Europe having their own control and not trusting the United States of America. And it's very interesting because you go back and you remember back when he was running for president and the big crowd that he had in Berlin and everyone was cheering. And now there's a level of distrust that our European allies have with us that is unconscionable. Because of these leaks, because of this perception, and perception can lead to reality, and I think that's what this administration is dealing with.
There's an even more significant danger here. There was proposed a UN oversight of the Internet, pushed largely by India, Brazil, Russia, and China, and they met in Dubai over July to discuss UN governance of the Internet, and Google and the other suppliers refused to participate or be involved, and the thing collapsed. What Russia and China want, and Brazil and India, is for a government entity controlled by the UN to give out web addresses, domain names, and all of that, and to police Internet traffic, and to enforce censorship of Internet criticism of these countries on domestic websites, and to permit these countries to charge a surcharge for international domains to get into their country. We beat that back. Now the Europeans taking the governance away from the United States and trying to put it in their local European Union government is a halfway station toward UN government control over the Internet, which would be manipulated by the most repressive regimes to extinguish Internet freedom. Well, we talk about it at length in our book, Here Come the Black Helicopters, focusing on that.
We've seen how scary the situation has been with the UN trying to get involved in gun control as well. That's gotten a lot of people riled up. So that's certainly something to pay attention to. The timing in all this, Colonel West, with coming on the heels of this meeting with Hollande and President Obama, now he's talking to Merkel. Do you think there's any coincidence there?
Oh, well, there probably is some coincidence there. I mean, we will never know until it all gets flushed out. But I think Dick brings up a great point, is that, again, you see this one world governance trying to get more control over some of these simple liberties that we have, with the Internet, with guns, even, how we interact with our children. And that has to be that creep that we have to be really, really attuned to. But, again, we have set this thing up like T-ball for Merkel and others to come in and say, we don't trust you guys because of what you're doing and all these leaks that are coming out. So there's some fault that has to be taken by this administration. And I think that, the NSA, you go back to Clapper's testimony before the Senate, it has just been bad propaganda after bad propaganda.
He admitted he probably shouldn't have said those words that
And
he
the
said.
president's comment, we are not listening in on anybody's phone calls.
Yeah.
That turned out to be off by about 40 million.
Yeah. And Rand
Plausible
Paul's lawsuit coming up.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to follow. Plausible deniability or not, we don't know. We'll have to see how that lawsuit shakes out. Another interesting story that we're following here, 3,000 Americans have now turned over their passports over the course of the last year. They lined up at embassies around the world and ditched their U.S. citizenship. The number is a dramatic spike, triple of what it has been the past 5 years. What forces are behind this spike, guys? Can you imagine ever turning over your U.S. passport?
Taxation. You know, I've talked to many people here in South Florida who have the means by which they're looking at Belize, they're looking at other places.
They're out of their minds.
You can see here on the screen here,
do
we
not
have that for you.
turn over your U.S. passport. Do not renounce your U.S. citizenship. It's the most valuable thing on earth. I just want to address climate change for a minute. Have you noticed how the vocabulary has changed? It's not global warming because of the temperatures. It's now climate change. And it's not that its sea levels are going to rise, because they're not. And the Antarctic ice cap is now 25% thicker than it was last year. So it's not that that's going to happen. It's that it causes weather events, droughts and Sandy and tsunamis and stuff, for which there's very, very little proof. So it's a moving target both in vocabulary and in outcome.
But I will even take it further back, because I remember growing up as a kid, and it was all about global cooling.
Yeah.
You know, I was told that we were moving toward an ice age. So this is an even bigger moving target. And it really comes back to this. You know, you talk about our economy, the energy sector, cap and trade. Cap and trade did not get through by legislative order. And so you're looking at all of these things that can be done by executive fiat
But
or by the
back to a point
bureaucratic
that Dick
state.
made earlier, if the Democrats were really serious about doing something on climate change, they wouldn't be bringing it up now when they are in such a poor position to negotiate. They have zero leverage in Congress. So this has got to clearly be something else.
No, it's not that at all.
Yeah.
It's that Kerry is laying the basis for an international climate change treaty that does not require Senate ratification, because it hinges on voluntary steps by nations. And Obama takes the position that he can then implement that by executive order. It's an immaculate conception Kyoto Accord that we will have no voice in ratifying.
And the other thing is the feel good. You know, don't you want to make sure that we protect the environment for the children? And then you get to demonize the other side by saying they don't want to. All they're concerned about is the big corporations who are poisoning the air and what have you. So what the Democrats are trying to pivot to is the low-hanging fruit that they believe they can go back to ginny up their base and get them excited.
Certainly seems like a straw man
You're
argument.
right politically there, Alan. But the other point,
Dick, we got to
is
run.
that
We'll have
the Democrats want a global governance, and this is their method of achieving it.
Absolutely.
We'll keep our eyes on that, Dick. And gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. We got to run and hit this commercial break. We'll have more coming up for you here on America's Forum. Of course, we do want to hear from you. You can always contact us. Our contact information is up here on the screen as well. When we come right back, can the U.S. reach a final agreement with Iran, and will tensions about prisoner releases in Afghanistan hurt the relationship between the Afghanistan and the United States? Those stories when we return here on America's Forum.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free 1-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
We're in the midst of an obesity epidemic, and I'm not surprised. The statistics on obesity mirror an increasing trend of eating out or ordering in. In fact, some people dine out every night, but eating in restaurants is one of the biggest enemies of your heart. When you're in a restaurant, you don't really know what you're getting, and the calorie counts of many restaurant dishes are astronomical. In fact, some single dishes contain more calories than we should eat in an entire day. Eating in fast food restaurants is even worse. A diet of hamburgers, French fries, and shakes constitutes a fast lane to the emergency room. If you really want to help your heart, get in the habit of cooking simple meals at home. Here are 3 easy tips that will make your food taste better than even the best restaurant. Choose the best fruit in season. Your local farmer's market is a great place to start. It will probably still cost less than that pie you were thinking of buying. Get in the habit of using fresh herbs. You can use them in egg white omelets or dust them on the fish you grill or bake. And for a light dessert, choose a square or 2 of dark chocolate that you and your spouse can enjoy. There are lots of ways to make your heart healthy, but there are also lots of ways to damage it. That's why I wrote Fix It, Dr. Crandall's 90-day program. In it, I'll tell you how to kickstart your metabolism every day, how to pick the best diet for you, how to stop hunger from sabotaging your diet, the 7 superfoods for your heart. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute.
He promised health care for everyone. But now, seniors are getting hit with more than $700 billion in Medicare cuts. Insurance costs are going up. Businesses say they can't afford Obamacare, so they'll pay big fines, and millions of employees could lose their health care. Plus, everyone pays hidden taxes and fees, as much as 40% on some health plans. But you can get the truth. Get the brand new book, The Obamacare Survival Guide. It's #1 on Amazon and a New York Times bestseller. Inside, you'll discover hundreds of loopholes, tips, and strategies to survive Obamacare now. Join the more than 250,000 people who've claimed their copy and get yours before it's too late. Go to Obamacare911.com. The Obamacare Survival Guide will give you hundreds of tips on how to save money and protect yourself. You can pick up your copy in bookstores for only $19.95 or have your copy rushed to your door for the internet-only price of just $4.95. Go to Obamacare911.com to claim your copy now.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger.
Tear down this wall. Not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Ask what you can do for your country.
Afghanistan is a sovereign country. If the Afghan judicial authorities decide to release a prisoner, it is of no concern to the U.S. and should be of no concern to the U.S.
And in a move that shows just how limited the Obama administration's influence over Afghan President Hamid Karzai is right now, 65 dangerous Taliban members are once again free men. They were released last week from a facility near a U.S. complex at Bagram Air Force Base. Karzai called the prison a Taliban factory where innocent Afghanistan citizens have been radicalized, and that's why he ordered the release. But these 65 Taliban were directly linked, according to U.S. officials, to the deaths of 32 NATO troops. Karzai even went a step further, saying that the U.S. is interfering with the sovereignty of its country, saying the states are harassing Afghanistan's procedures and judicial authority. Joining me right now to discuss this is Fred Fleitz, former CIA analyst and managing editor of the global forecasting site Lignet.com. Fred, it's great to have you with us.
Good to be here, John.
All right, so Karzai has gone ahead here against all objections from the United States to release these prisoners. What does it mean for a national security standpoint?
There's a very troubling gulf developing between the U.S. government and Karzai. Karzai has always been mercurial and difficult to deal with, and I think he is approaching the end of his term in office, and he's trying to influence what happens after he leaves. I think partly he's concerned about what will happen when the United States leaves the country and he has to deal with the Taliban. I think in a way he and his allies are trying to deal with that issue. But it also has to deal with the deterioration of relations between Karzai and President Obama, and I think this is a very unfortunate situation, since these are people who are going to return to the fight, the terrorist fight.
Now, Fred, I've heard some reports that this is basically the Obama administration reaping what they've sown here, because they did not exactly start out on the best footing with the Karzai government in Afghanistan.
That's right. I think they've handled it awkwardly, and they have sort of given it short shrift because they've paid attention to other international issues. Karzai feels he's been disrespected in meetings with the president. He doesn't think that diplomats sent to deal with him from Washington have treated with him with respect. And basically, we've seen a bad situation snowballing to the point where he's actually releasing terrorist suspects.
Yeah, how much of this is retribution for some of those slights that you just mentioned right there, and how much of this is Karzai simply trying to put himself in the best position, knowing that he's going to have to try to govern Afghanistan without any U.S. forces in the country, without significant forces in the country?
The slights played a role, but I think the main factor behind this is that Karzai and his political associates are trying to figure out how they will run the country after the United States withdrawal. In Karzai's view, and I think this is correct, the Taliban is just standing by waiting for the United States to withdraw. Once the U.S. and the rest of the international force are out of there, I think the Taliban is going to make a play to take over the country.
And so, you know, Fred, we've had Dick Morris on here. We've talked about this issue with Karzai recently, and he was pointing to the fact that this is all because of the fact that Gitmo is essentially closed. There are still prisoners there, of course, but there are no new prisoners being accepted. Now, if that were not the case, would this still be a situation? Would these prisoners still be out on the streets right now?
I think it would have solved the situation if we had moved these prisoners to Guantanamo. But as you know, the president hasn't added anyone from Guantanamo. He's actually been releasing dangerous prisoners from that facility.
And another wrinkle to this story, Fred, that we continue to take a look at, both the Washington Post and the Daily Beast are reporting that this is some kind of prisoner swap also in the works here for Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. What's your take on the fact that there could be talks, even negotiations between the U.S. and Taliban forces for a prisoner swap?
There's been talks to try to release Sergeant Bergdahl for some time, but it involved Taliban prisoners who are being kept at Guantanamo. And it's sort of divided members of Congress, because they would like this brave soldier, American soldier, to be released from Taliban custody. But at the same time, it's a high price to release. Basically, the prisoners who remain at Guantanamo are the worst of the worst. I don't know that there's a relationship between what Karzai did and Bergdahl.
You know, in a more broad sense of this issue here, a lot of Americans would be upset. Of course, everybody wants to see Bo Bergdahl come home, but you know, a lot of folks characterize the Taliban as a terrorist organization, and this looks like the U.S. is negotiating with terrorists.
We have been negotiating with the Taliban. This is, if there are talks to do this right now, I mean, I think there probably are behind the scenes, but we've made several attempts to negotiate with the Taliban to try to get them to agree to some type of post-withdrawal peace agreement. And it's a difficult situation because the Taliban is not going away and we are withdrawing.
And so maybe it's a situation where we're forced to deal with them, even though we might not like the idea of that. Fred, let's move on and talk about Iran. The world powers have begun their talks in Geneva, or in Switzerland, I should say, trying to reach a deal, a final agreement on the nuclear dispute. The main question in the U.S., how can we make sure that Tehran can't build a bomb anytime in the near future? What are you looking for as these talks begin right now?
Well, John, the talks have started inauspiciously because Iran made clear they're not going to shut down any nuclear facilities. They said this today. If we're going to have a real agreement that's going to halt the threat from the Iranian nuclear program, Iran has to give up its enriched uranium stockpile. It has to give up its facilities that can make enriched uranium for weapons. It has to answer all the questions that the IAEA has about its nuclear weapons-related activity, including giving it access to all facilities. Iran has shown no signs it will do any of these things. It's making very small, easily reversible concessions. And the statement today that they will not shut down any facilities, I think, is very ominous.
And so it doesn't seem like Iran is going to even come close to approaching doing any of that. Is this all a huge waste of time?
I think it's worth engaging Iran in talks to try to move them as far as we can to stop weapons-related activities, to see if there's something we can do to slow their program. So from that perspective, I support the Obama administration's decision to try to conduct talks. What I don't support are claims by the Obama administration that these talks have a good chance of substantially rolling back the Iranian nuclear weapons program. I don't see any chance of that happening. But engaging them in talks has the prospect of maybe doing that in the future, maybe somehow pressuring them to stop their support of terrorism. It's certainly better than not talking.
All right, Fred, thanks for your insight on that. Fred Flights with LigNet.com. We appreciate you having you here with us. We'll have more with you later on. We'll keep watching the situation in Switzerland as these talks resume. We want to hear from you. Do you think this is all a huge waste of time? Should the U.S. talk to Iran about their nuclear program? You can reach us on social media. Find me at JohnB_Newsmax or all of us here at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. We'll be right back with more. We recently sat down with former Secretary of Defense Donald.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. You need to watch out because thousands of new Obamacare rules are currently being implemented, and few know what the law says or does. Listen to what Senator Max Baucus, one of the authors of the Obamacare law, recently said.
I tell you, I just see a huge train wreck coming down, and I don't see any results yet. I just see a huge train wreck.
He's right. So protect yourself from this train wreck. Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. Join more than 500,000 Americans who have their copy.
Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare311.com. Obamacare311.com. That's Obamacare311.com.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep, but it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight, and nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind: to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
Learn about our risk-free trial offer at prostaterevive.com/Jim.
Meet John and Nancy. They've spent their lives working hard and saving money, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But unfortunately, all that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. Then one day, John and Nancy picked up a free copy of Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. This book revealed 24 little-known investments that put them back on track to a happy and secure retirement. Get your free copy of Powerful Secrets at myfinancialage.org.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. We were just joined by LigNet.com analyst Fred Flights to discuss Hamid Karzai in Afghanistan. And we recently sat down with former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld to discuss that and a number of other issues as well. Our interview included a discussion about the spread of radical Islamist groups across the Arabian Peninsula and North Africa, flying the black flag of al-Qaeda. First, I want to focus in on the situation in Iraq and Syria, where this group known as ISIS, or the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, is gaining steam and is on the march. Is there anything that could have been done between now and 2003 that would have prevented groups like ISIS from infiltrating countries like Syria and Iraq?
Oh, goodness. You know, even hindsight isn't 20/20. It's an enormously complicated set of problems. The way it was handled diplomatically, it seemed to me, was unwise at the outset to, in effect, issue a contention that you were drawing a line in the sand and then not adhering to it. Sent a signal in the country that they could, it's pretty much free play. They could do what they want and not worry about it. And then officials of our government not only did that, but they set about the task of saying if we did anything, it would be very, very modest and amount to next to nothing. And of course, that isn't what you do in diplomacy. Either you keep your mouth shut. If you say something, then by golly, you better live up to it. And we did exactly the wrong thing, it seems to me. Now, can you predict how those things are going to come out? No, it's very complicated. There's lots of pressures. People are coming in from other countries. You've got the Iranians actively helping the Assad government. Now you have Russia helping the Assad government. The implication that when it was over, Assad could still be there is obviously a deterrent to anyone opposing Assad. If they know a brutal dictator is going to be present when it's over, which apparently nobody said he should be gone and would be gone.
Now, you look at, if Assad were somehow to be removed from office, you look at this in the broader context of the region, including Iraq, including Egypt, where Mubarak was ousted. Iraq has a democratically elected government, but still the black flag of al-Qaeda is flying over parts of Iraq today. It's flying over northern Syria. It's flying in parts of North Africa. These non-state actors that are, loosely affiliated, however you want to describe it, with al-Qaeda, does this show us that perhaps maybe the only thing more important than democracy is stability of a government in these countries?
Well, there's no question but that without stability, the economy becomes a disaster. You look at Egypt, no tourist is going to go to Egypt today. And the unstable situation dissuades everybody from acting, except for those that are tough, brutal, and determined, and well organized, like the Muslim Brotherhood. Everyone else has to look at it and step back and be cautious about it because they don't know how it's going to end up.
Earlier today, I was talking with Dick Morris, the former Clinton advisor, and we were talking about a similar situation, but we also talked about the recent news about the release of these Taliban fighters by President Hamid Karzai. What was your reaction when you found out about this?
Well, from everything I can understand, the people he's talking about releasing are serious bad guys, people who should not be released. On the other hand, I personally believe that our country has managed the Karzai relationship in a terribly inept way. To have our diplomats publicly castigating Karzai year after year, one special envoy after another, the Vice President of the United States, at some point he had no choice. He was the elected president of that country. They have a constitution, they have a process, and he's a political leader without a militia. And he had no choice but to oppose the United States on a series of things just to show that he was president of the country.
Now, looking ahead, how should the Karzai situation be handled? I mean, he's saying this is of no interest and no concern to the United States.
Well, the United States, I mean, first of all, the president never should have said we'll be leaving on a date certain, because it tells the Taliban, wait a while and then you can come in and take over. I mean, to throw away all that's been accomplished in that country with the election of a president, the passing of a constitution, the election of a parliament, the return of expatriates from all over the world to that country, it was on a good path forward, and it has been placed in jeopardy unnecessarily.
And so as we look at this, we're seeing now images of this American prisoner of war, Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, on TV. There was a really fascinating article on the Daily Beast by Josh Rogan. And in the report, he says, quote, White House spokesperson Caitlin Hayden declined to talk about administration contacts with the Taliban. We cannot discuss all the details of our efforts, but there should be no doubt that we work every day using our military, intelligence, and diplomatic tools to see Sergeant Bergdahl return home safely, she said. But, and this is where it gets interesting, according to interviews with current U.S., Afghan, and Pakistani senior officials, the potential new U.S. Taliban prisoner swap talks, which have not yet begun, are linked to a broader U.S. government effort to lay the groundwork for a potential reconciliation between the Afghan government led by Karzai and the Taliban, who he has been fighting since the beginning of the occupation. As part of the outreach, American officials have repeatedly asked the Pakistani government to release a captured Taliban leader. And also there is this talk now of a Taliban embassy of sorts in Doha, Qatar. Could you ever imagine this type of, you even thinking about dealing with the Taliban in this way when you were as Secretary of Defense?
No, I mean, the Taliban were recognized, I think, only by 3 countries in the world as a legitimate government. They used the soccer stadiums to cut off people's heads, not to play soccer. Women couldn't go out on the street without a male member of their family accompanying them. They couldn't go to school. They were a vicious government, if you want to call them a government. The situation today, however, if you put yourself in Karzai's shoes, the President of the United States many, many months ago said, we're leaving. So we're leaving him there with the Taliban, anxious to come back in. I'm not knowledgeable about the current situation, the diplomatic situation. I wouldn't want to suggest that I am. But when Karzai is told by the United States government that they're leaving, and he's left with what there is there, he's going to have to figure out a way to manage that process so when he leaves office, he turns over something other than simply a Taliban government.
And we'll have more with our interview with Secretary Rumsfeld coming up later in the show. Still to come right here, we'll be talking with Pat Buchanan and political writer Lauren French about tax reform. And Duke economics professor Carl Harvey joins us, plus Money News editor Jeff Yapstein will be with us in the studio for a live in-depth discussion on today's top Money News. We'll be right back.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. SocialSecurity811.com. At SocialSecurity811.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other loopholes we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At SocialSecurity811.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says this website is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to SocialSecurity811.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's SocialSecurity811.com. SocialSecurity811.com.
Judging from everything you hear, you think all cholesterol is bad, but that's not really true. You need a certain amount of cholesterol to maintain good health. The problem is that too much cholesterol in your blood contributes to a plaque, a fatty substance that narrows the coronary arteries that feed blood flow to your heart. Picture your coronary arteries as a 4-lane highway. If one lane becomes blocked, traffic still flows well. 2 lanes, no major problem. But if a 3rd lane becomes blocked, that spells trouble. It's the same way with your coronary arteries. And when plaque slows their blood flow to your heart, this can even cause a heart attack. The good news is that when it comes to cholesterol, lifestyle changes can pay off big time. Even a small reduction in plaque can be like opening up another highway lane. Suddenly, blood flow that was stalled can go forward again. Changing your lifestyle does not have to be hard. And in fact, here are 3 ways to help you start lowering your cholesterol. Snack on nuts. Nuts are probably one of the easiest and tastiest ways to lower cholesterol. Walnuts and almonds are among the best. Bulk up your diet with fiber. Choose whole fruits instead of a fruit juice, brown rice instead of white, and if you're eating a baked potato, be sure to leave the skin on. Choose fish. Fish contains cholesterol-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger.
Tear down this wall. Not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. Taking a look at the battle for the U.S. Senate seat in Kentucky, it could end up being a $100 million race. Incumbent Republican Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, faces a spirited battle within the GOP and a primary challenge from Tea Party candidate Matt Bevin. Meanwhile, the Democrat, Kentucky Secretary of State Allison Grimes, will likely sail towards her party's nomination.
So this fall, you'll have a choice. You want to take my desk and move it over on the other side of the aisle with somebody who's going to make Harry Reid the Majority Leader of the Senate, the play caller in the Senate, or do we want a leader of the majority from Kentucky?
Now, Senator McConnell, who has low popularity ratings these days, will try to link his Democratic challenger, Allison Grimes, to the also unpopular President Obama. But first, he has to deal with a challenge from within his own party, and that is Matt Bevin.
Big government guy. He's a moderate at best, except for when he's running for re-election.
So elections make a difference. Winners make policy and losers go home.
Polls say it best. Kentuckians don't view this race as a toss-up. They are ready to toss out their senior senator, someone who has failed to put them first and instead has been looking out. The only job that he's focused on keeping is his own, and the people of Kentucky are ready to finally have a voice and a champion instead of a chatterbox in Washington, D.C.
Well, Mitch McConnell's campaign slogan is Team Mitch. Allison Grimes has postcards printed up saying Team Switch. Observers believe that Senator McConnell still faces a bigger threat from his Democratic challenger than from within his own party and the Tea Party challenger. At the top of our next hour, we'll be talking with syndicated columnist and former presidential candidate Pat Buchanan about the Tea Party and what the movement stands for today, just what kind of impact it will also have on the 2014 elections. We have a great first hour of the show. We want to go ahead and get to some of your tweets and Facebook posts that you were kind enough to send in to us. Let's put those up on the screen. Here's one, Twitter from FAK in Tanoba. Unemployment is the single largest factor in the public's unhappiness. We talked about that a lot during our new Gallup poll that we referenced here in the beginning of the show. Most people now saying that jobs and unemployment is the #1 problem facing this country. Here's another one. Elections promises have not been fulfilled. Unemployment keeps increasing day after day. It certainly seems that way if you look at that poll from Gallup that we talked about. And here's, I believe we have one more that we would like to get to for you. Okay, that's all we have for you right now. We'll have much more from our social media platforms coming up later in the show. Plus, we have much more to get to here on America's Forum. Coming up, we have an interview coming up with Pat Buchanan, the former presidential candidate. What's his take on the current state of this election, not just in Kentucky, but also in Texas? And what will the Tea Party mean for these 2014 elections? That and much more when America's Forum on Newsmax on TV continues right after this.
52-year-old male complaining of chest pain.
Clear. If you suffer cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, you have just a 7% chance of survival.
Hi, my name is Dr. Crandall. As a cardiologist, I've dedicated the last 30 years to helping my patients win the fight against heart disease. That's why I wrote the Simple Heart Cure, to show you how easy it is to identify early warning signs, make simple heart-healthy changes, and reverse heart disease in just 90 days. You'll discover how to reduce your risk of heart attack by 61%. Lower your bad cholesterol, unclog your arteries naturally, safely lower your blood pressure, and so much more. This easy-to-read book shows you how to make simple changes to protect your heart.
Dr. Crandall's best-selling book is available at bookstores everywhere, or go online to heartcure211.com and get your copy for just $4.95.
Newsmax Magazine is proud to present a unique tribute to our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. It is a very special documentary in our commemorative issue of Newsmax Magazine, celebrating the centennial of President Reagan's birth. First, here's a video clip from the award-winning documentary, Rendezvous with Destiny.
We're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Impulses of an evil empire.
Tear down this wall.
I believe that together we can keep this rendezvous with destiny.
In the next several minutes, you will learn things about President Ronald Reagan that you've never seen, heard, or read before. Welcome to today's special Newsmax event celebrating the life and legacy of President Reagan. During this historic presentation, we will commemorate President Reagan's storied life. We'll revisit his 2 terms in office and recollect his proudest achievements and greatest challenges. Ronald Reagan's life reads like a fairy tale of success stories. He was an accomplished athlete, an honored veteran, a famous actor, the governor of California, and of course, our nation's 40th president.
He called himself a citizen politician and only entered politics when he warned government was gaining too much power. By then he was age 54, with a successful career behind him. Twice elected President of the United States, Ronald Wilson Reagan was a contradiction to some. Once a Democrat, then a Republican. A champion of smaller government whose own government grew. A fiscal conservative who failed to balance the budget. His critics mistook his affability for weakness, but behind the smile and the charm existed an extraordinary leader with unique skills and bold and revolutionary ideas.
We only had time to share just a few of the top defining moments in Ronald Reagan's presidency, but you'll get to see them all in Rendezvous with Destiny. By the way, the president's close relationship with the Pope is especially fascinating. You'll also learn how dealing with an alcoholic father helped shape Reagan's ability to negotiate. And if you ever wondered what the leader of the free world likes to get for the holidays, well, you'll find that out as well. So let's review today in this free offer. We are sending you a copy of Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and the collector's limited edition of our issue commemorating the 100th anniversary of President Reagan's birth.
Right now, when you subscribe to Newsmax Magazine, you can own both the DVD and receive the special Reagan 100th Birthday Commemorative Edition. That's $25 in bonus gifts when you subscribe. Go to newsmax.com/Reagan13 to subscribe today. Newsmax.com/Reagan13. Join the millions who read Newsmax Magazine every month.
Remember the happy days when he said everyone gets health insurance. But now, Congress says 7 million Americans will lose their health insurance, and your insurance rates could increase by 200%. Some health plans even get hit with a 40% tax and over $700 billion in Medicare cuts. So now we're really sad. But you can be happy again by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller, and over 500,000 Americans have gotten a copy. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. You can get your copy at Obamacare911.com. It gives you the tips, strategies, and loopholes you need to know. Get your copy of the Obamacare Survival Guide at stores everywhere for $19.95, or get the internet-only offer of just $4.95 and save $15. Go to Obamacare911.com to claim your copy now.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. It's great to have you all with us today. Here's a look at some of the top stories making headlines today.
Certainly should not allow more time to be wasted by those who want to sit around debating whose responsibility it is to deal with this threat while we come closer and closer to the point of no return.
Secretary of State John Kerry and the administration using recent severe weather here in the United States to push their climate change agenda at home and abroad. The Secretary of State has also ordered all U.S. embassies to tackle climate change in their host countries. Also, more now from GOP lawmakers launching an investigation into the failure of state-run Obamacare exchanges in Oregon, Maryland, and Massachusetts. Republicans, led by Oregon Congressman Greg Walden, are putting these web-based insurance marketplaces under the microscope for functional failures and exorbitant costs that have been left for taxpayers to pick up. Members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee sent a letter to the Government Accountability Office asking for a review of $304 million in federal grant money that the botched websites have received. In Oregon, the total online enrollment number is at 0. That's right, 0. Not a single person has enrolled online, leaving the state completely dependent on paper applications. But Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius is still defending the president's signature piece of legislation. Here she is speaking in Orlando.
The city is better off, families are better off, communities are better off if people have affordable health coverage. And the city bears the cost of people who don't have affordable health coverage. Employees are less productive on their jobs. Kids are less able to learn in school. People have to take more time off. Families don't get the care they need.
That might be true, but Obamacare is not helping the situation. Also in Seattle, it looks to set to become the first U.S. city to introduce cash machines that will cater solely to Bitcoin users. Canada was the first to install Bitcoin ATMs, and there are plans to introduce cash points in London and Singapore this year. The new ATMs will come equipped with scanners that recognize government-issued identities such as passports and driver's licenses. Users of the digital currency will not only be able to swap out their Bitcoins for cash at the ATM machines, but they will also have the possibility to deposit cash or purchase more Bitcoins. Since its launch in 2008, Bitcoin has been growing in popularity despite the currency's volatility and lack of legislation governing its use. And our top story today here on America's Forum are the recent GOP pause on immigration and the most recent debt ceiling deal. There are signs that Republicans have lost middle America. Joining me right now by phone to talk about this is nationally syndicated columnist Pat Buchanan. So, Pat, you've said recently in your column that the GOP raised the white flag of surrender on immigration and lost middle America. Tell us what you were talking about.
Well, I think this goes back a long way to the time that I ran in 1991-92, when there were 3 million illegals in the country, and they were coming in at a rate of 5,000 a weekend in San Diego. And I said, you know, the Republican Party better get control of the borders here when George H.W. Bush was president, or we're going to lose the country. And I think that, in fact, is happening. The demographic change has really destroyed the Nixon-Reagan new majority.
And so where does this leave the party right now? Because this is certainly a topic of debate within the party itself, and we've heard from folks like yourself talking about the Republican Party raising the white flag. But I want to read some quotes here from a recent piece that George Will wrote, a recent op-ed that he wrote. Quote, "Many Republicans see immigrants only future Democratic votes. This descent into Democratic-style identity politics is unworthy of Republicans and unrealistic." So for the folks out there who are viewing this as a push solely by Democrats, a cynical one, to just get these votes, what do you think about what George Will says right here?
Well, I think George is mistaken in this sense. I mean, the immigrant folks and let's take the Hispanic Americans, the largest minority in America, as minorities are considered folks of color, 17% of the population. They voted over 70% Democratic, and 2 out of 3 believe in, if they have a choice, they believe in more government programs rather than smaller government. They, quite frankly, are philosophically attuned to the Democratic Party. The ones who are coming in legal and illegal now are very, very poor. Therefore, they are by and large beneficiaries of a welfare state. Now, why should these Hispanic folks, once they get the vote for a party which is going to cut taxes they don't pay, but take away benefits they do receive?
Now, that runs against some arguments you hear from a lot of Republicans in states like New Mexico, Susana Martinez, or in Texas, or even in Florida, where we hear that a lot of these folks that come to this country, they come here just to work. They're not coming here to vote.
Well, there's no doubt they're coming here to work. I mean, they work very hard. There's no doubt about it. I mean, everywhere you go, you see jobs that used to be held by white Americans and African Americans are now held by Hispanics. They're very hard-working people. But all I'm saying is, politically, they identify with the Democratic Party. Politically, Asian Americans voted 70% or more for Obama. Hispanics over 70% for Obama, and African Americans 93 to 95% for Obama. As these populations increase, unless you want to, I mean, you're dreaming. The great Republican majority that was built up under Nixon and Reagan, where we carried 49 states twice, is going to disappear.
And so, Mr. Buchanan, a lot of folks would also say that this is an issue because there are 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country right now, that this, you know, if you do raise the red flag here, that majority you talk so much about could never be obtained again.
Therefore, we'll give them all amnesty and have another invasion.
But this does have to be tackled, though. There has to be a Republican solution here to this problem, does there not?
Well, the Republican solution to the problem is secure the border and punish businesses that hire illegal aliens and don't reward folks with amnesty who have broken into the country. Enforce the laws of the United States. In 1953, Dwight Eisenhower had what was called, by a politically incorrect term, Operation Wetback, and they had 1 million illegals in Texas and along the border. He sent a United States general there, retired general down there, to deal with the problem. The problem with the Republican Party and the problem with the conservative movement is that it's in a state of moral paralysis. It cannot move. It cannot act. It cannot decide. And as things drift, the party is moving closer and closer to the falls, and it's now trying to work out some kind of compromise with the Democratic Party, which will drive it right to the wall after it makes its first surrender.
All right, let's move on and talk about the debt ceiling debate as well. We have a couple sound bites that we have prepared for you that we want to play real quickly. Here is Speaker John Boehner talking about the debt ceiling debate.
You won't negotiate. You won't deal with our long-term spending problems without us raising taxes. We won't even sit down and discuss these issues.
The fact that we are no longer going to see, I believe, anybody try to hold our government hostage and threaten the full faith and credit of the United States of America in order to contract policy concessions. The fact that we were able to pass a clean debt limit is just one example of why, when you guys are unified, you guys stick together, this country is better off.
Now, Mr. Buchanan, I think what you were talking about, that paralysis, may be highlighted by this particular issue, the debt ceiling that just was recently passed, just raised. How disappointed were you with the way that whole thing went down?
Well, I really wasn't with the debt ceiling after the budget battle, where I thought the party should fight. The debt ceiling was, look, it was a second charge of the Light Brigade, and the Republicans would have been slaughtered because, first and foremost, they would have lost the battle when the Democratic Senate refused to accept any kind of Republican amendment. Secondly, when the market started shaking and gyrating and the business community started howling and the media came down on the Republican Party with both feet, they would have caved and capitulated, and you would have had another surrender. And if you're going to lose a fight going in and you know it, pick a different terrain and a different battlefield.
But why wasn't Boehner and the GOP willing to take that risk that you just mentioned right there? Why did they seem to fold here so easily?
Because I think Boehner, look, you got a small pair and you're looking at three of a kind showing. You got to, at certain times, fold your cards and wait for a new deal and a new hand. And I do agree with the bypassing this particular debt ceiling fight, because I don't think they would have won it, and I think they knew they wouldn't win it going in. And you don't march up the hill only to know that you're going to turn around and march back down again, carrying a lot of casualties.
And so what do they need to do to get a better hand then, moving ahead?
They're going to have to get the Senate of the United States and the presidency of the United States. But the last time they did that, they launched $2 trillion wars and expanded the government as much as any president since Lyndon Johnson. Look, the Republican Party has been in a very bad way, and I think it lacks really the self-confidence, the belief in its views and values. But if it doesn't start taking a stand soon, the tides of history are not with the GOP.
All right, thank you very much, Pat Buchanan. Good to have you with us here. We'll have much more on America's Forum when we come right back after this.
Imagine if you had a secret code for making money, a code buried deep within biblical texts.
A code that certain investment titans have quietly exploited to amass billions.
And what if this code could be used by you today to unlock vast amounts of wealth safely and ethically?
Investment expert and former pastor Sean Hyman says there is such a code. He calls it the Biblical Money Code. Sean credits this code for helping him turn his father's $40,000 retirement account into $396,000.
And today, you have the chance to tap into this life-changing biblical money code by visiting moneycode40.com.
That's moneycode, the number 40.com.
At moneycode40.com, you will find a free video that describes how you could use this biblical code in your own life to get out of debt and invest for profits.
That's moneycode40.com.
Meet John and Nancy. Like many people, John and Nancy have spent their whole lives working hard, saving their money and investing wisely, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But the reality is, today's world is not the same as it was. John and Nancy's stocks have taken them on a serious roller coaster ride, and it's all but destroyed their retirement funds. Their house is not even close to being worth what they paid, and to boot, their middle-class paychecks no longer cover their costs. All that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. In fact, they are no longer thinking about when they will retire, they're wondering if they'll retire. Then one day, John and Nancy heard about a man named Tom Hutchison, a veteran of Wall Street for over 2 decades. Tom noticed that the wealthy invested differently than normal people, and their methods seemed to be a secret they didn't want to share. So Tom left his job, compiled the strategies, and published them in the controversial book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. John and Nancy immediately picked up a copy, began investing, and never looked back. Thanks to Powerful Secrets, John and Nancy now have investments that pay up to 20% a year. They learned about unique tax-advantaged investments, and their favorite chapter revealed a strategy that anyone can use to turn $50,000 into $1 million. Now, John and Nancy have control of their financial future in this new reality, and they have peace of mind about their investments that they never had before. Best of all, they are back on track to a secure retirement. To get your free copy of the book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns, simply visit www.myfinancialage.org.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom.
By the content of their character. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Turning our attention now back to jobs and unemployment now. Both are once again the top problem facing Americans. According to a new poll from Gallup, almost 1 out of every 4 Americans rank that issue as their gravest concern. The economy ranks number 2, with 20% saying that is the biggest problem. The government and politicians had topped the list since the shutdown back in October, according to Gallup. The jump was most pronounced among Republicans, from 11% naming jobs and unemployment in January up to 24% in February. With me now in the studio to talk about all this is Money News editor Jeff Yasteen. Jeff, it's great to have you with us.
Too, John.
All right, so when we look at these types of polling data here, it's somewhat disconcerting because consumer confidence, the whole sentiment of the consumer is very important. What does this tell you?
It tells me that really as much as we'd like to think that things have changed, they really haven't. I mean, one thing you can always do is trust in sort of the wisdom of the American people. People have a sense that the economy is changing, because of technological reasons, Obamacare, all the various things that we can point to. And because of that, as much as the data may say, hey, don't worry, be happy, same time, we all know it's just tough out there to find a real job, one that pays a good living wage.
Now, we hear about the Consumer Confidence Index a lot. Who is watching that number, and why are they watching it so closely?
Well, certainly investors are watching it because it's a good indicator of the ability of consumers to spend. I mean, if they feel good, if they're not concerned so much about things like jobs, obviously very important, then they're more willing to go out there and buy cars and buy all the other things, washing machines, all the other things that drive the rest of the economy.
So it's a momentum issue. Really.
It's momentum, but remember, as much change as our economy has gone through in recent years, it's still an economy based on consumer demand. Exports are moving higher and all that, but at the same time, it's still very much based on consumer demand.
So the consumer is king. What specifically does the consumer price or consumer confidence index tell us right now? Because it seems to be moving in what would appear to me like the right direction.
I think it's telling us that people can sense that perhaps we're at some sort of a change, but you look back the last 6, 7, 8 years since the financial crisis. Every time it looked like we were about to sort of get into some sort of sustainable mode, something happens and we fall back down. And I think that's the thing that people are still most concerned about. Evidence both in concern about the unemployment with the Gallup poll as well as what you were describing there.
Yeah, sure. I know it can change really quickly, so we'll keep our eye on consumer confidence because it seems a little discordant with that poll we were talking about. Also, a story that has been getting a lot of attention are these Bitcoins. We like to talk about them here. It's a fascinating thing to see here in Seattle. It's going to become the first city in the United States to have one of these Bitcoin ATM machines. They've already had them made available in Canada, and we're likely to see them also in London and Singapore this year. So if you're in those cities, stop by and get some Bitcoins. Jeff, are you surprised to see, it's one thing to have this type of currency circulating on the internet where we've seen things like PayPal crop up, alternative forms of payment, still using the U.S. dollar. But are you surprised to see ATM machines for an alternative currency?
In some ways I am, especially for something like Bitcoin that hasn't been out there all that long. On the other hand, in many ways, like you and I talked once some weeks ago about, does Bitcoin, is it a fad or is it something that has more legs to it, so to speak? And when you see things like this, you have to start thinking maybe we're seeing something very interesting and a longer lasting trend. I mean, is somebody's grandmother going to be using Bitcoin anytime soon? Perhaps not. I've never used it myself. But on the other hand, if you'd asked me in 1995, what the heck is Amazon or Yahoo? Most people would be like, I don't really know. It's something other people have talked about. Now everybody uses it. So, maybe that will happen with Bitcoin. It's very hard to say.
Now, as opposed to a way to spend this money as a currency, is it being talked about as an investment strategy or a vehicle by anybody?
Some Bitcoin proponents have been talking about it, and that was one of the key reasons why the core group of people behind Bitcoin in many ways wanted to get it, because it's a way to sort of sidestep the Federal Reserve. We all see how the Fed is continuing to manipulate the dollar and keep it sort of pressed down to devalue it. Bitcoin theoretically is a way to move around that. Whether it actually plays out that way or not, of course, remains to be seen. And sovereign governments don't necessarily really cotton too well to Bitcoin either.
It'd be interesting to see a correlation, if there is one, between the popular opinion of the Federal Reserve and the value of the Bitcoins. Let's turn our attention now to something that's a little bit more established, if you will, and that's gold right now. We saw it top $1,300 an ounce on Friday. Yesterday it rose again. Today it looks like it's up a little bit as well as I check right now. Jeff, there are still a lot of gold forecasters right now who are bearish on this precious metal. Why is that?
It's because, and I was just writing something about this, and so some of my gurus, I have a guru, Tom Luongo, who writes for one of our newsletters, Gold Stock Advisor. And the one thing you see with a lot of analysts, Look, they all got it wrong last year. I mean, I think the London Bullion Market Association has a survey. Last year, the survey, forecast survey was for an average price of gold for around $1,400 an ounce. So the analysts missed that one completely. So now, in many ways, it's just human nature. They're going in the other direction. I was just reading in, I think it was Bloomberg this morning, that despite gold's big move that you just talked about, several of the most prominent gold analysts are still very bearish and see a price at around like $1,000, $1,050 an ounce. So I attribute much of what you're describing here to just straight out human nature, you know.
Okay.
They're sticking to their guns.
And so what do you look at in the year ahead that you think might have the most significant impact on the price of gold, good or bad?
The key thing is to look at what the economy's doing. And, you know, we talked before about how sometimes markets need to look and investors need to look over the horizon, all right? It's not what's in front of you, it's what might be over that you can't quite see yet. That's what markets do, they anticipate. So look at what the economy's doing. If it looks like some of the data is starting to come in weak, and it has been of late, so mixed but also weak, then you're going to start seeing the Fed start making noises that, you know, perhaps we're not going to withdraw so much stimulus. If it's really weak, they may even start to go back into quantitative easing mode. If they do that, that means good times ahead for gold.
And potentially, you know, good times ahead for the stock market as well. We saw Janet Yellen come out and talk about kind of business as usual, keeping the quantitative easing in place for the most part.
Right.
The markets seem to like that. The Dow Jones Industrial up again, the S&P up again as well. Is this a sustained rally here? Is this, you know, more of the same, or? You know?
I wish I knew, of course. I wish I had my crystal ball in front of me. It's so hard to say because there are so many different aspects to our economy and to the stock market. But certainly, if all the markets are going to be doing is looking at what the Fed does and says and doesn't do, then as long as Janet Yellen is saying we are very much focused on quantitative easing and supporting the stock market, then the stock market's chances are it's going to stay high until it finds something else to worry about.
Well, certainly a lot of people are watching very closely with everything that Janet Yellen does, maybe too closely. So we'll be keep an eye on that as well, maybe not quite as close. We also want to hear from you guys about this discussion. We have some social media posts we'd like to get to here in just a second. If you could put those up on the screen, I think we have those ready for you. From our Facebook friends, here is Bruce B. Failure compounded by ineptitude. I assume he's talking about the administration right there. Next up, Judith K. It is a disaster, but clearly meeting the objective of destroying our nation's health care system. Obviously talking about Obamacare right there. Also, John W. saying it is a huge failure and should have never been passed and signed into law. It is communism. An opinion there coming from Facebook. John W. writing into us. We appreciate all your comments. Keep them coming. We'll be right back with more here on America's Forum on Newsmax TV.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free 1-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
Heart disease is the biggest killer disease in America, and this doesn't surprise me. We are addicted to starches, sugars, fatty meats, and salt. People who live in countries with little heart disease eat very differently. One way some people stay heart healthy is by following what is known as the caveman or Stonehenge diet, so named because of its similarity to the way our prehistoric ancestors ate. People who follow this type of diet live off local fruits and root vegetables and get their protein mostly from fish and wild game they shoot themselves. Now, since most of us don't hunt or fish for all our protein, here are some simple tips on how you can start to eat like a caveman, modern day style. First, fill up on fruits and vegetables. Eat them first and you'll be less hungry. Feast on fish, which is rich in nutrients but not in calories. Choose fatty fish like mackerel, herring, sardines, and salmon, which are rich in heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Get out and go for a walk. Remember, our ancestors were hunters and gatherers, so they didn't spend their time sitting in front of a TV or computer all day. If you live more like a caveman or a cave woman, your heart will love you for it. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thank you for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
He promised health care for everyone. But now, seniors are getting hit with more than $700 billion in Medicare cuts. Insurance costs are going up. Businesses say they can't afford Obamacare, so they'll pay big fines and millions of employees could lose their health care. Plus, everyone pays hidden taxes and fees, as much as 40% on some health plans. But you can get the truth. Get the brand new book, The Obamacare Survival Guide. It's #1 on Amazon and a New York Times bestseller. Inside, you'll discover hundreds of loopholes, tips, and strategies to survive Obamacare now. Join the more than 250,000 people who've claimed their copy and get yours before it's too late. Go to Obamacare911.com. The Obamacare Survival Guide will give you hundreds of tips on how to save money and protect yourself. You can pick up your copy in bookstores for only $19.95 or have your copy rushed to your door for the internet-only price of just $4.95. Go to Obamacare911.com to claim your copy now.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger.
Tear down this wall. Not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Ask what you can do for your country.
Can you give us a single valid reason for groups to be lumped together and not granted for this long period of time? I'm realizing you didn't look at all of these, but can you give us a reason where in history you'd seen that kind of lumping together of people, primarily 501c4s, and the kind of delays, this nearly 3 years delay and still counting?
I have not done anything wrong. I have not broken any laws. I have not violated any IRS rules or regulations, and I have not provided false information to this or any other congressional committee. And while I would very much like to answer the committee's questions today, I've been advised by my counsel to assert my constitutional right not to testify or answer questions related to the subject matter of this hearing.
There you just heard some IRS officials testifying on Capitol Hill. And after last year's alleged targeting of Tea Party groups, both sides of the aisle are now raising serious concerns about new rules proposed by the IRS to rein in political activity by nonprofit groups. The rare agreement between two camps, which say the new regulations drafted by the IRS to curb political spending and activity by nonprofits are far too broad. The fear shared by liberal activists and the Tea Party is that the new rules will wind up limiting efforts like voter registration and candidate forums. Joining us now to unpack what this proposed law means is Lauren French. She's a tax policy reporter for Politico and the author of the blog Morning Tax. Lauren, it's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for talking to us. So tell us what this law actually means and why both sides of the debate are so concerned here.
Well, it's not a law yet. It's actually a proposed regulation from the Treasury and the Internal Revenue Service. And what it's attempting to do is really clarify what these 501c4 groups, these political nonprofits, these nonprofit groups can do while maintaining their tax exemption. Right now, the law is very unclear. It's very murky. And there isn't ever been a set of activities that the IRS or the Treasury says, if you do this, we're counting this as political action. If you do more of these political actions than you do social welfare, you're going to lose your tax break. So this is what that proposed regulation is doing, is saying if you do political forums with candidates within 60 days of an election, if you participate in get out the vote efforts, you're giving pamphlets out that really skew towards one candidate or one party, we're going to say that's political action.
It's interesting because I'm thinking about, covering local politics and specific, examples of groups like the League of Women Voters holding candidate debates before local election. Now, is this the type of thing that could be impacted by this?
It could be impacted by that, absolutely. So candidate forums, debates, and really anything that you're really weighing in on the political process. So if you're trying to influence an election, that will likely be counted as politics under these proposed regulations if they are ever finalized. But it's important to note that the IRS and the Treasury isn't saying you can't do it at all. It's saying that it can't be your exclusive or even your primary function. These groups are social welfare organizations. So generally right now, the cutoff is about 49%. If 49% of your time and money is spent doing political activities and 51% is on social welfare, you're fine, you get to keep your tax break. But they need to really put that percent. That's one of the questions that the Treasury asked, is where the percent should be, where, a hard rule and then a hard list of this is political activity. So it's not as if these groups can't do anything at all. They just are going to have a tougher time saying, my get out the vote effort wasn't politics.
I guess the greatest concern here is free speech, and that this rule might limit free speech if it were to become a law. What are folks saying about that?
There's a lot of concern, especially on the right and even on the left, over free speech concerns. You would, these political groups are saying that they have a right to do candidate forums, and especially the get out the vote effort is one that has both the right and the left in a little bit of a tizzy, because that's not necessarily has ever been considered a political function as much as it was considered a social welfare function. So free speech is definitely a concern because they want to be able to share their opinions with their members, and especially the ones that lean a little bit more toward political actions in general and have more of a political purpose. They are worried that these rules, if they do something, if they're talking within their membership about a candidate they like or a party that they prefer, that all of a sudden the IRS is going to come in and say, oh, you have no more tax status, you're not tax exempt anymore. And that's where a lot of the concern comes from. But like I said, it is important to remember they're not saying you can't do it at all. They're just trying to cap how much these groups do it while still getting a tax break.
Now, we have mentioned there are concerns here from both liberal and conservative groups about this, but is there is anybody talking about this possibly some sort of retaliation or a deepening of what some have accused the Obama administration of doing and targeting these types of groups?
That's the main concern of congressional Republicans. House Ways and Means Chairman Dave Camp has brought up that concern. Ted Cruz has brought up that concern, that this is nothing more than an attempt by the Obama administration to codify that Tea Party targeting scandal. Of course, it is important to mention that the Inspector General's report that unveiled the Tea Party targeting scandal, that uncovered it, did say that the IRS and the Treasury and the White House should put out some sort of regulations on this. So there's a question on timeline. Dave Camp has put out some emails showing that the Obama administration was working on this before the Tea Party investigation came out, but it was one of those recommendations to ensure that the IRS didn't have the ability to target conservative groups or really any groups in the future.
Now, you mentioned Chairman Camp. Are there going to be any specific or concerted efforts to torpedo this proposed bill?
Well, you've already seen Chairman Camp put out a legislation blocking it for 1 year or until the congressional probes into what happened at the IRS are completed. Mitch McConnell has joined that effort in the Senate with the ranking Republican on the Senate Finance Committee, Orrin Hatch. Jeff Flake has signed on to that. So in both chambers, you're seeing Republicans asking the IRS, or at least trying to mandate that the IRS and the Treasury hold off on finalizing this rule change, at least until all of the committees who are investigating the IRS complete their investigations, have a report out,
What about Democrats, Lauren? Because we mentioned how there are liberal groups concerned about the free speech aspects of this. Is there anything similar going on, or is what Dave Camp and Senator Flake, or what they've been trying to do? Is there anything similar to that on the Democratic side?
There really isn't. A lot of the concern from liberal groups are from off-congressional concerns. These are the groups, the nonprofits themselves, or good government watchdog groups. In Congress, mostly the Democrats are really trying to push past the targeting scandal. They want to focus
All right, Lauren,
on
we'll have to leave it
regulation.
there for right now. Thank you for your time. We got to get to break here. We want to hear from everybody as well. Thanks very much for Lauren for being with us. Tweet us, or tweet me directly at JohnB_Newsmax, or all of us here at Newsmax TV. We'll be right back with more on America's Forum here on Newsmax TV right after this.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. You need to watch out because thousands of new Obamacare rules are currently being implemented, and few know what the law says or does. Listen to what Senator Max Baucus, one of the authors of the Obamacare law, recently said.
I tell you, I just see a huge train wreck coming down, and I don't see any results yet. I just see a huge train wreck.
He's right. So protect yourself from this train wreck. Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. Join more than 500,000 Americans who have their copy.
Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare311.com. Obamacare311.com. That's Obamacare311.com.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep, but it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight. Nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind: to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
Learn about our risk-free trial offer at prostaterevive.com/Jim.
Meet John and Nancy. They've spent their lives working hard and saving money, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But unfortunately, all that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. Then one day, John and Nancy picked up a free copy of Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. This book revealed 24 little-known investments that put them back on track to a happy and secure retirement. Get your free copy of Powerful Secrets at myfinancialage.org.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. On Friday, the digital currency Bitcoin was trading at $220.29. As of today, it was closer to $250, according to the web-based Bitcoin exchanges. Once the largest platform for trading Bitcoin, Mt. Gox, Japanese-based Bitcoin exchange recently The Japanese-based Bitcoin exchange, I should say, recently halted withdrawals, which exacerbated people's fears about having their wealth in the digital currency. The good news for Bitcoin users is the currency is still trading near $600 on some exchanges. Boston University finance professor Mark Williams was quoted as saying, quote, if Bitcoin currency and infrastructure are unstable, it is increasingly dangerous to the subject of the global economy to such market risk uncertainty. The longer the virtual currency economy is allowed to grow unchecked, the greater the chance of adverse impact on the economy. Interesting stuff there on Bitcoin. Joining me now to talk about this more, and still with us, is Money News editor Jeff Yasteen. We were talking about Bitcoin a little bit earlier. It seems reasonable enough to be very skeptical of these digital currencies when they're unbacked by any state or real-world goods. But Bitcoin optimists say this is going to be the future. Are they just drinking the Kool-Aid?
I have to sort of hedge on that. I'm not sure. It's a vast experiment that we haven't never seen the likes of a currency like Bitcoin until now. But the concerns about whether it's this big threat to the global economy or the U.S. economy, I think, are pretty overblown at this point. I mean, the transactions we're talking about may be sizable, but they're not the kind that are. It's not like the derivatives and swaps and the other things that are in the many billions upon billions of dollars that we see every day in the sort of mainstream banking system.
All right, for another take on this, let's bring in Duke University professor of finance Campbell Harvey. Mr. Harvey, it's great to have you with us.
Good to be on the show again.
And so what do you think about this Bitcoin being able to potentially put the global currency markets at greater risk?
Well, the first thing, Bitcoin is not just a currency. It's a network, and it's a way to exchange ownership very efficiently. And it does have some advantages over what we usually think of as currency. The transactions costs are very low. There's no fraud. There's no counterfeiting. There's no double spending. There's no centralized authority to do this. It's extremely secure. It's essentially unhackable. What you mentioned in terms of Mt. Gox, that's a third party. And the problem that they have has to do with their software and how they communicate with the Bitcoin network. The Bitcoin network is secure and has never been hacked, and to attempt to hack it would be extremely difficult.
And so what about this? What about this, Jeff? The fact that it's not backed by gold. We hear the U.S. dollar backed by the full faith and credit of the federal government. Some people might shrug their shoulders at that statement now, but when we look at this, guys, what does that mean? We heard a lot of good things from Professor Harvey right there.
Well, I don't think Professor Harvey would disagree. I mean, when we look at what the dollar really is, it's not backed by anything except our faith that it's going to be worth something and somebody's going to accept it. When you look at it that way, Bitcoin really isn't any different. It's just new and unfamiliar to many people. I don't know, Professor Harvey, what do you think? Well,
actually, the U.S. dollar is backed because even though you can't exchange it for gold, the U.S. government enforces a number of things. Number one, you must accept U.S. dollars as payment. It is legal tender. Number two, the government has the ability to tax you, and you have to pay in dollars. And number three, if you don't pay your taxes, you can go to jail. So there actually is something behind the dollar, whereas Bitcoin, there's nothing like that. There's no centralized authority. There is no underlying collateral for it. The value of the Bitcoin is the efficiency in terms of transactions. So there's no chargebacks. There's no allowance for fraud. There's no back office to verify ownership. There's no transaction charges. So you put all that together, and that creates value. It's a way, as I said, to efficiently transact, and it is potentially, and who knows if this will happen, but potentially an extremely disruptive force when it comes to financial intermediation.
Sorry, John.
Well, that's the concern. That's the concern,
Yeah.
really, is that this could be disruptive. We've heard some discussions about some ways that the federal government, Campbell, might take a look at trying to regulate this. Do you think that would be in their best interest at this point right now? Should they try to get involved, or would they be perhaps going on a fool's errand if they try to do that, considering the way Bitcoin has been set up?
Well, right now, as you mentioned, it is pretty small. It is growing very quickly. And the chairman of the Federal Reserve actually wrote a letter in December saying that, well, there could be some issues in terms of like money laundering, which is the main thing that's been raised as a negative. But the chairman also said something very interesting, that he said that potentially this holds some promise because it allows people to transact in a much more efficient way. So you save money on transactions. That's a good thing for the economy in general.
All right, so the jury's still out on Bitcoin, but interesting insights from both Jeff and from Professor Harvey right there. Moving on, we do want to talk also about China this week and India and gold consumption. China and India both two countries that account for about 60% of the global demand for gold right now. In 2013, China consumed 1,066 metric tons, India 975, in comparison with just 190 metric tons here in the United States. Why are people in China buying so much gold, Professor Harvey?
Because they don't trust their government. And it's the same in India. And India, it's worse. There's no way out. You can't take your local currency and buy US dollars. There's no way to do it. So basically what people do is they go to gold, even though they know gold is quite volatile. So gold is more volatile than investing in the stock market. They know it's volatile, but they don't have any choice. It's their only way to hedge the uncertainty that has to do with devaluation or political instability.
Professor Harvey, do you see, I know in India last year they had these, I think they're import tax restrictions that seemed to be designed to curtail the demand from Indians to import gold into the country. Have those been lifted, or do you see those getting lifted at some point?
Okay, and Professor Harvey, we'll ask you to hold that thought for just 1 second. We'll have you guys both back. We got to run to a commercial break real quickly. We'll have more from Jeff Yastein, Money News editor, and Duke University finance professor Campbell Harvey right after this break. Of course, you're always welcome to join us and participate in the discussion. We'd like to hear from you on Twitter and on Facebook as well. We can put up our contact info up on the screen here, and we'll be right back on America's Forum right after this.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. SocialSecurity811.com. At SocialSecurity811.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other loopholes we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At SocialSecurity811.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says this website is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to SocialSecurity811.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's SocialSecurity811.com. SocialSecurity811.com.
We're in the midst of an obesity epidemic, and I'm not surprised. The statistics on obesity mirror an increasing trend of eating out or ordering in. In fact, some people dine out every night, but eating in restaurants is one of the biggest enemies of your heart. When you're in a restaurant, you don't really know what you're getting, and the calorie counts of many restaurant dishes are astronomical. In fact, some single dishes contain more calories than we should eat in an entire day. Eating in fast food restaurants is even worse. A diet of hamburgers, French fries, and shakes constitutes a fast lane to the emergency room. If you really want to help your heart, get in the habit of cooking simple meals at home. Here are 3 easy tips that will make your food taste better than even the best restaurant. Choose the best fruit in season. Your local farmer's market is a great place to start. It will probably still cost less than that pie you were thinking of buying. Get in the habit of using fresh herbs. You can use them in egg white omelets or dust them on the fish you grill or bake. And for a light dessert, choose a square or 2 of dark chocolate that you and your spouse can enjoy. There are lots of ways to make your heart healthy, but there are also lots of ways to damage it. That's why I wrote Fix It, Dr. Crandall's 90-day program. In it, I'll tell you how to kickstart your metabolism every day, how to pick the best diet for you, how to stop hunger from sabotaging your diet, the 7 superfoods for your heart. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger.
Tear down this wall. Not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Still with us, Money News editor Jeff Yasteen and Duke University professor Campbell Harvey with us on Skype. It's good to have you guys both back with us. Jeff, I wanted to go ahead and let you re-ask your question to Professor Harvey that we had to cut short just before we went to the break.
Sure, Professor Harvey, I was just curious your reaction in terms of the Indian government. They've had these import restrictions in place for some time now, which prevents people from acquiring as much gold as they'd like in that country, at least through legal means. Do you think that those restrictions will stay in place, or what's the chance that India may lift those at some point?
It's a great question, and I think that you need to understand why they're doing this. In the U.S., you make some money, you take your paycheck, you deposit it at a bank. Then the bank uses that money to create loans, and then it's redeposited, it's multiplied through the economy in our financial system. In India, in contrast, people don't have any faith in their currency. So they get their paycheck, and then they buy gold. And most of the gold is bought from outside the country. So it hurts the exchange rate indirectly. They take the gold rather than depositing cash into a bank account, which basically sucks credit out of the Indian financial system. So they're in a very bad situation right now because people are just going to gold. There's very little credit creation, and it puts their economy in a spiral heading downwards.
Interesting take on the Indian economy, and Jeff, thank you for your comments there. Campbell, I also want to discuss this renewed feud in the House over the 2009 stimulus law. On Monday, the White House released a report that said the law saved or created an average of 1.6 million job years each year and raised the country's gross domestic product by 2% and 3% respectively through 2009, 2010, and 2011. The report went on to say that the law had the most minimal impact on the long-run debt, arguing that the legislation resulted in economic growth that offset or emulated its costs. Republicans, however, claim that the law has been a total failure. What's your take, Campbell, on this?
Well, basically, I think that we're both sides, Republicans and Democrats, focused on the wrong thing, and that's like GDP. So anything that's good for GDP is supposedly good for the economy. And I just don't look at it that way. When you actually borrow $800 billion and then put it into the economy, what you're doing is increasing growth in the very short term, but you're actually going to have to pay for it in the long term. So indeed, the government, just by its borrowing, can manipulate to get whatever GDP growth you want in the short term, but you need to pay for it in the long term. And the best way to think about this is to think about two people. And let's say both of them make $50,000. And then next year, they make $55,000, and they spend it all. So their income has increased by 10%, from 50 to 55. Suppose one of the people borrowed $45,000 and then spent it all. So their spending is $100,000, and it looks like, if you measure it in terms of GDP, that they've had not 10% growth, but 100% growth.
And it's very misleading, Campbell. Thank you for your insight on that. We unfortunately have to run right now and go to commercial break. When we come right back, we'll take a look at unemployment and jobs again, back at the top of the concerns that most Americans are fearing.
can that be?
52-year-old male complaining of chest pains.
Clear.
If you suffer cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, you have just a 7% chance of survival.
Hi, my name is Dr. Crandall. As a cardiologist, I've dedicated the last 30 years to helping my patients win the fight against heart disease. That's why I wrote the Simple Heart Cure, to show you how easy it is to identify early warning signs, make simple heart-healthy changes, and reverse heart disease in just 90 days. You'll discover how to reduce your risk of heart attack by 61%. Lower your bad cholesterol, unclog your arteries naturally, safely lower your blood pressure, and so much more. This easy-to-read book shows you how to make simple changes to protect your heart.
Dr. Crandall's best-selling book is available at bookstores everywhere, or go online to heartcure211.com and get your copy for just $4.95.
Newsmax Magazine is proud to present a unique tribute to our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. It is a very special documentary in our commemorative issue of Newsmax Magazine, celebrating the centennial of President Reagan's birth. First, here's a video clip from the award-winning documentary, Rendezvous with Destiny.
We're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Impulses of an evil empire.
Tear down this wall.
I believe that together we can keep this rendezvous with destiny.
In the next several minutes, you will learn things about President Ronald Reagan that you've never seen, heard, or read before. Welcome to today's special Newsmax event celebrating the life and legacy of President Reagan. During this historic presentation, we will commemorate President Reagan's storied life. We'll revisit his 2 terms in office and recollect his proudest achievements and greatest challenges. Ronald Reagan's life reads like a fairy tale of success stories. He was an accomplished athlete, an honored veteran, a famous actor, the governor of California, and of course, our nation's 40th president.
He called himself a citizen politician and only entered politics when he warned government was gaining too much power. By then he was age 54, with a successful career behind him. Twice elected President of the United States, Ronald Wilson Reagan was a contradiction to some. Once a Democrat, then a Republican. A champion of smaller government whose own government grew. A fiscal conservative who failed to balance the budget. His critics mistook his affability for weakness, but behind the smile and the charm existed an extraordinary leader with unique skills and bold and revolutionary ideas.
We only had time to share just a few of the top defining moments in Ronald Reagan's presidency, but you'll get to see them all in Rendezvous with Destiny. By the way, the president's close relationship with the Pope is especially fascinating. You'll also learn how dealing with an alcoholic father helped shape Reagan's ability to negotiate. And if you ever wondered what the leader of the free world likes to get for the holidays, well, you'll find that out as well. So let's review today. In this free offer, we are sending you a copy of Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and the collector's limited edition of our issue commemorating the 100th anniversary of President Reagan's birth.
Right now, when you subscribe to Newsmax Magazine, you can own both the DVD and receive the special Reagan 100th Birthday Commemorative Edition. That's $25 in bonus gifts when you subscribe. Go to newsmax.com/Reagan13 to subscribe today. Newsmax.com/Reagan13. Join the millions who read Newsmax Magazine every month.
Remember the happy days when he said everyone gets health insurance. But now, Congress says 7 million Americans will lose their health insurance, and your insurance rates could increase by 200%. Some health plans even get hit with a 40% tax and over $700 billion in Medicare cuts. So now we're really sad. But you can be happy again by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller, and over 500,000 Americans have gotten a copy. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. You can get your copy at Obamacare911.com. It gives you the tips, strategies, and loopholes you need to know. Get your copy of the Obamacare Survival Guide at stores everywhere for $19.95, or get the internet-only offer of just $4.95 and save $15. Go to Obamacare911.com to claim your copy now.
Hello and welcome to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Today on the program,
we certainly should not allow more time to be wasted by those who want to sit around debating whose responsibility it is to deal with this threat while we come closer and closer to the point of no return.
what is the most dangerous problem facing the world today? If you ask John Kerry, he will tell you it's climate change. Forget about disease outbreak, poverty, terrorism, or the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Climate change is the greatest challenge of our time, according to Kerry. And Kerry says all nations must respond to the challenge. What this response will look like for investors coming up later in the show. Also, GOP lawmakers are launching an investigation into the failure of 3 state-run Obamacare exchanges. The move will put healthcare websites in Oregon, Maryland, and Massachusetts under the microscope for functional failures and exorbitant costs that have been left for taxpayers to pick up. Republicans on the House Energy and Commerce Committee sent a letter to the Government Accountability Office asking for the review of $304 million in federal grant money that the botched websites have received. In Oregon, the total online enrollment number is at 0. Not one person, not a single person has enrolled online, leaving the state completely dependent on paper applications. But Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius still defending the president's signature piece of legislation. All right, taking a close look at this poll here from Gallup right now. Jobs and unemployment back at the top of the list of problems facing Americans. According to a brand new Gallup poll, most Americans, 1 out of every 4, rank this issue as their gravest concern. The economy ranks number 2, with 20% saying that is the biggest problem. Not a very good picture when you combine the two. The government and politicians had topped the list since the shutdown in October, according to Gallup, but concerns about the government and at least measures by responses to the open-ended questions have since faded on that issue. Since then, the jump was most pronounced among Republicans, from 11% jumping up to 24% this month compared to last. Joining me right now to discuss this is financial expert and investment advisor Peter Schiff, and also with us is Jeff Yasteen as well. Peter, good to have you with us.
It's good to be with you.
All right, taking a look at unemployment right now, this is the biggest concern, again, for the American public. It has outstripped problems with the government. What does that tell you right now about the state of our economy?
Well, first of all, it tells you that the official unemployment figures are meaningless, because it wouldn't be such a big concern if the unemployment rate were really 6.7%, because that doesn't tell the whole story. So many people have just given up looking for work. They're so discouraged by the poor labor prospects that they're no longer being captured by the statistics, or they're working part-time, but they really want full-time jobs. And so the government is really painting a much rosier picture than what is really out there. And I think even more than unemployment, people are being bothered by the escalating cost of living. The government denies that there's inflation, but the real cost of living, food, energy, basic necessities are rising rapidly in price, but people's paychecks are diminishing in purchasing power.
And Jeff, when you look at this from an investment standpoint, when you hear what Peter just told us there, what stands out to you the most about this situation concerning consumer confidence and some of the untold stories that we're looking at that are baked into this economic picture?
Well, much like Peter was saying, you really have to suspect so much of what you see in the media that's reported from mainstream economics quite often, because you are concerned about it, and it seems like every time, as we mentioned earlier, every time somebody says, looks like the economy's finally in sustainable mode, and the Fed has said this quite often under both Yellen and Bernanke, suddenly then the economy pulls back a bit, and there's another reason to do yet more quantitative easing.
Yeah, concerning when we take a look at the bigger picture here, but focusing in on some specific stories, some storylines we're following right now, Peter. Coca-Cola, the world's largest beverage company, has announced a $1 billion cost-cutting program. The move follows a steep fourth-quarter decline of 8.4%, hurt by slowing growth in emerging markets. We've heard this as a problem in the bigger economy as well, problems in these emerging markets. And as Managing Director Terry Davis apologized to investors after a $404 million write-off at Coke's packaged food unit drove profit to its lowest level since 1992. Peter, when you take a look at Coca-Cola here, what is the bigger picture? Is this an issue with emerging markets, or is this a problem with the company itself?
No, I think actually it's going to be a bigger issue for the United States, because you have to realize the problem with these emerging markets really started when they made the mistakes of absorbing all the dollars we were creating as a result of QE. We ran these huge trade deficits with the emerging markets, and then rather than allowing their currencies to rise, they fought this currency war where they tried to debase their own currency along with ours, and they imported our inflation and also malinvestments that temporarily screwed up their economies. But I think the real problem for Coke and other companies is going to be the U.S. economy. We're going to be the submerging market, because when the dollar tanks, and I think it's very close to happening, when the dollar goes down, Americans aren't going to be able to buy anything or very much of anything, and that's where companies really have to be worried. It's about the U.S. market.
Peter, do you think that this is sort of the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, the news we see from Coke, and certainly so many U.S. multinationals have their profits, in some cases a pretty big majority of those profits, come in from overseas?
Well, I still think the bigger problem is domestically. And look at all the companies that are reporting bad earnings here in the United States. You know, McDonald's reported a couple of weeks ago they did much better overseas, but they had a 3% drop in sales here in America. So I think it's America that's going to be the problem, because Americans are broke. We have no savings. We're leveraged up to the hilt. We're borrowing money just to keep our economic heads above water. The rest of the world isn't in that bad a shape. They actually have savings. They are working. They are producing. So they're going to be enjoying a appreciating currency market. They're going to be able to buy a lot of these products. It's the Americans where the party is over. We're not going to be able to shop.
Let's take a look, Peter, at another stock story that we're following kind of closely. It was just announced that Apple, the tech giant, is laying the groundwork to go beyond just making these consumer electronic devices. They're going to start considering a foray into cars, perhaps even the medical device industry. The move comes as smartphone and tablet sales have started to slow down. Sources claim that Apple is seriously exploring sensor technology that can help predict heart attacks by studying the sound blood makes as it flows through arteries. A lot of people like Apple as a company. What do you think about their move potentially going into the medical device field?
Well, first of all, I don't know about the concept of an iCar. I read the story that they had met with Tesla at some point. But look, medical devices, you know, I don't know, maybe they can get out of their bailiwick and start expanding, or maybe not. Maybe it's a sign that there could be some problems. I know Apple does certain things very, very well. Whether they're going to do other things well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is something that Steve Jobs would have gotten involved in, but we'll have to see. You know, it's an innovative company. Whether they can make innovations in that area, but it might be a warning that if they think their core businesses aren't growing anymore and they're stretching to try to figure out where they're going to continue to get the earnings growth, it might be something to be concerned about as a stockholder.
Yeah, and I want to get your take on this real quickly, Jeff. Is this a troubling sign that Apple might be moving beyond its core business, signaling that the saturated market of smartphones and tablets may not be that revenue source that they had always relied on it to be?
I'd be a little worried. I mean, whenever you see a company moving out of its core area into something else, it's always fraught with risk, even for a company as adept as Apple has been.
And Peter, as we look at this as a whole, Apple has been an important part of a lot of 401ks as the stock price has climbed over the last few years, even some turbulence in there. People might be holding on to the stock that they might not know it. What do you suggest those folks do?
Well, you know, I mean, I don't know that they have to run out and sell their Apple. I mean, in general, I think people need to be overweighted in foreign stocks. I mean, we have an underweighting in the U.S., and, you know, we own shares of Apple in the only U.S. fund that I manage, although we're underweighted in it. It has been a pretty big a component of the U.S. stock market. So there might be other companies that are in a lot more trouble than Apple. I mean, there are a lot of companies that I think have ridiculous valuations, you know, nosebleed valuations reminiscent of the dot-com bubble. So, you know, other stocks might even be in more trouble than Apple. But in general, I think people have to look beyond the U.S. to try to get out of really what's going to be a much worse financial crisis than what happened in 2008. It's going to be a dollar crisis, ultimately a treasury bond crisis, and people need to look abroad and own real hard assets through stocks. But I think through international stocks with good dividend yields is a much better way to play the market than to be over-concentrated in overpriced, hyped-up U.S. stocks, you know, on the verge of what I see as a real economic collapse here.
All right, interesting take on Apple here. We'll focus more on the financial markets in just a second, including gold. emerging stocks on the rise, and plus 2014 fund investors, what those folks are looking at as well when we continue here on America's Forum on Newsmax TV. Peter Schiff will be back with us. Jeff Yasteen will be back with us as well coming up. But we want to, of course, get your take on all this, what our discussion that we're currently having here on America's Forum. You can tweet me directly at JohnB_Newsmax or at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. Don't go away. We have much more to come from Peter Schiff and from Jeff Yasteen when we come right back after this.
Imagine if you had a secret code for making money, a code buried deep within biblical texts.
A code that certain investment titans have quietly exploited to amass billions.
And what if this code could be used by you today to unlock vast amounts of wealth safely and ethically?
Investment expert and former pastor Sean Hyman says there is such a code. He calls it the Biblical Money Code. Sean credits this code for helping him turn his father's $40,000 retirement account into $396,000.
And today, you have the chance to tap into this life-changing biblical money code by visiting moneycode40.com.
That's moneycode, the number 40.com.
At moneycode40.com, you will find a free video that describes how you could use this biblical code in your own life to get out of debt and invest for profits.
That's moneycode40.com.
Meet John and Nancy. Like many people, John and Nancy have spent their whole lives working hard, saving their money and investing wisely, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But the reality is, today's world is not the same as it was. John and Nancy's stocks have taken them on a serious roller coaster ride, and it's all but destroyed their retirement funds. Their house is not even close to being worth what they paid, and to boot, their middle-class paychecks no longer cover their costs. All that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. In fact, they are no longer thinking about when they will retire, they're wondering if they'll retire. Then one day, John and Nancy heard about a man named Tom Hutchison, a veteran of Wall Street for over 2 decades. Tom noticed that the wealthy invested differently than normal people, and their methods seemed to be a secret they didn't want to share. So Tom left his job, compiled the strategies, and published them in the controversial book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. John and Nancy immediately picked up a copy, began investing, and never looked back. Thanks to Powerful Secrets, John and Nancy now have investments that pay up to 20% a year. They learned about unique tax-advantaged investments, and their favorite chapter revealed a strategy that anyone can use to turn $50,000 into $1 million. Now, John and Nancy have control of their financial future in this new reality, and they have peace of mind about their investments that they never had before. Best of all, they are back on track to a secure retirement. To get your free copy of the book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns, simply visit www.myfinancialage.org.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom.
By the content of their character. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. Talking a little bit more about these emerging stocks right now. They've risen to a 3-week high led by industrial and finance companies. Chinese lending at a record rate aided prospects for growth in the world's second largest economy. A good sign for emerging markets, right? Any particular companies to look out for here or any to avoid? Also, employers are squeezing their employees 401k plans from Facebook to JP Morgan. Companies are holding back on both the amount and the timing of their 401k matching funds, also dragging out vesting schedules. The combination of the two is making it more difficult for workers of a certain age. Now, Peter, as we look at this, companies, are they doing this to protect their bottom line here, or is there something else at play?
No, I would imagine that they're just looking at their bottom lines and looking at their revenues and their prospects and trying to get a handle on costs. I think corporate America is not nearly in as good a shape as people believe, and people like to look at the high levels of cash that U.S. corporations have. But what concerns me is that a lot of that cash wasn't earned, it was borrowed. If you actually look at the amount of leverage in corporate America, it's at record highs. And a lot of that money was used to buy back their own shares at what I believe to be inflated prices. And when the economy turns back down and revenues head south and interest rates head north, that's going to really squeeze their markets. It's also going to put a lot of pressure on valuations.
401ks have been the subject of a lot of discussion lately, whether or not they're really the best vehicle for folks to invest in right now. Jeff, as you look at this type of information and people are, kind of wondering if their money is best placed in these 401ks, what should some of the other specific questions employers and investors be asking of anyone in the financial field as they try to make sense of all this?
Well, number one is what kind of fees are you paying? You want to make sure you have very low fees. But the other thing I know I get frustrated at other jobs I've had is that the range of choices you have are sometimes quite limited. Like I like gold and silver, I like precious metals. I've always thought that there was a place for that asset with my 401k. But not many companies necessarily offer that choice, except to buy some sort of a wider index fund that it may only have a tiny exposure to it.
Yeah, and Peter, there's some talk about some certain funds that might be better for risk-adverse investors and, low volatility funds, things of that matter. Do you see those gaining more popularity here under current circumstances?
Yeah, well, first of all, being in the asset management business myself, I think the most important thing is not necessarily low fees, but it's the quality of the advice that you're getting and the quality of the investments that you're offered. And I agree, you want to be able to have exposure to the precious metals, both physical gold and the companies that mine it, silver as well. Get a lot of exposure internationally, not only to the foreign bond markets or to the foreign stock markets, but the bond markets and in emerging markets. And a lot of companies' plans really don't give you the right kind of choices. They're very cookie cutter, and your U.S. large cap, small cap, treasuries, stuff like that. I think these assets are not going to do well as far as delivering real inflation-adjusted returns to their investors. So hopefully they'll do their homework. Maybe more of these funds or these plans will start adding my mutual funds that I manage or our managed accounts, because I think I do a very good job of offering the types of investments that people are going to need if they're planning on retiring, because I think most people are going to watch their money retire, and they're going to have to work every day until they drop dead.
Now, you mentioned retirees here, or future prospective retirees, and one thing that has really affected these folks are the incredibly low interest rates brought on by the Fed's, monetary policy and things of that nature. We saw Janet Yellen take the helm of the Fed recently, and to much acclaim from the stock markets. What is your biggest takeaway, Peter, at this point as the stock markets have started to come back after Yellen has signaled that it's going to be business as usual at the Fed?
Yeah, the Fed likes to accept credit for their monetary policies causing the stock market to go up or the bond market to go up or the real estate market, but they never accept responsibility for food prices going up or energy prices going up. But prices are rising because of the Fed. Stocks are included. But the real problem is people are getting a 0% rate of interest, but at the same time, the money is losing value because the cost of living is going up. So the average American is falling deeper and deeper behind, and retirement is becoming more of a dream because, A, you can't earn enough money after you pay for your cost of living, and whatever you manage to set aside is giving you a 0% return, and it's wasting away as the Fed prints more money. And all most people can think of is to take their money into the stock market casino and just, put it all on black and give the wheel a spin and hope it comes up, in their favor. But, people are taking a lot of risk, and unfortunately it's because of the Fed, and they're not getting the right advice from most of their advisors on what to do about this situation.
Peter, I'm curious at your reaction here as far as the Fed, for years now has been trying to, in some form or another, stoke inflation in our economy, and has not really succeeded in that respect. The trend still is more deflation than at least overt inflation. Except
I disagree. I think they have succeeded. I mean, they've certainly inflated asset prices.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They've succeeded on the stock market and the real estate market, but we're not to that point yet where we have a $20 loaf of bread. Not yet, anyway.
Well,
and what I'm wondering is, do you think we're on the cusp of that happening?
Yeah. Well, the price of bread has been rising, maybe 7 or 8% a year for the past 3 years, along with the price of a lot of other goods and services that Americans consume. So to say that there's no inflation, that's sheer nonsense. The government masquerades the rate of inflation with the CPI, but prices are rising. It's just not asset prices that are going up. Consumer good prices are also going up. We just don't acknowledge that. But one of the reasons that they're not moving up much more rapidly is because we've been able to export a lot of the inflation. A lot of the money that we print ends up in foreign countries. They send us their products, and they take our paper, which they recycle into treasuries. But when that stops, and when those flows reverse, and all that money comes back, and we can't import all the goods anymore, in fact, more of our own stuff gets exported as our currency goes down, then all those inflation chickens come home to roost. The crazy thing is that you have Janet Yellen and everybody else trying to convince us that inflation is a good thing, that the thing that we have to worry about is that the cost of living might go down. And so to protect us from this horror, the horror of being able to buy things that we need for less money, we have to create all this inflation just to make sure that we don't, get a lower cost of living. All of this is propaganda. The government needs inflation. The government doesn't have the integrity to default on its debts, so it's going to inflate them away. And the government needs inflation to maintain the illusion of prosperity, because that's the only way to blow air into the stock market bubble or the real estate bubble. So it looks like the economy is getting better, but everybody actually living in the economy understands it's getting worse. And unfortunately, Janet Yellen wants more inflation. She's going to get it. You be careful what you wish for. Americans are going to be cursing Janet Yellen because they're going to be, struggling beneath this inflation. And it might eventually become runaway inflation if the Fed doesn't get a handle on it, which will mean much, much higher interest rates and a much worse financial crisis than 2008.
And that's the nightmare.
A lot of banks fail.
And Peter, that's a nightmare scenario that everybody is concerned about right now as they look at what Janet Yellen is going to do at the Fed. A lot of concern on that front. You talked about low interest rates, also stagnant wages, a big problem too. Something that does not help when we've seen the cost of milk, the cost of meat, the cost of bread rise rapidly, much faster than the CPI, as Peter talked about as well. Much more to come here on America's Forum. Peter, thanks so much for being with us. A pleasure, as always, to speak with you. Stay with us. We'll have more from our interview, our exclusive interview with former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. Hear what he has to say about the current situation in Syria right after this.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, a Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, a Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, a Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free 1-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
Judging from everything you hear, you think all cholesterol is bad, but that's not really true. You need a certain amount of cholesterol to maintain good health. The problem is that too much cholesterol in your blood contributes to a plaque, a fatty substance that narrows the coronary arteries that feed blood flow to your heart. Picture your coronary arteries as a 4-lane highway. If one lane becomes blocked, traffic still flows well. 2 lanes, no major problem. But if a 3rd lane becomes blocked, that spells trouble. It's the same way with your coronary arteries. And when plaque slows their blood flow to your heart, this can even cause a heart attack. The good news is that when it comes to cholesterol, lifestyle changes can pay off big time. Even a small reduction in plaque can be like opening up another highway lane. Suddenly, blood flow that was stalled can go forward again. Changing your lifestyle does not have to be hard. And in fact, Here are 3 ways to help you start lowering your cholesterol. Snack on nuts. Nuts are probably one of the easiest and tastiest ways to lower cholesterol. Walnuts and almonds are among the best. Bulk up your diet with fiber. Choose whole fruits instead of a fruit juice, brown rice instead of white, and if you're eating a baked potato, be sure to leave the skin on. Choose fish. Fish contains cholesterol-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
He promised health care for everyone. But now, seniors are getting hit with more than $700 billion in Medicare cuts. Insurance costs are going up. Businesses say they can't afford Obamacare, so they'll pay big fines and millions of employees could lose their health care. Plus, everyone pays hidden taxes and fees, as much as 40% on some health plans. But you can get the truth. Get the brand new book, The Obamacare Survival Guide. It's #1 on Amazon and a New York Times bestseller. Inside, you'll discover hundreds of loopholes, tips, and strategies to survive Obamacare now. Join the more than 250,000 people who've claimed their copy and get yours before it's too late. Go to Obamacare911.com. The Obamacare Survival Guide will give you hundreds of tips on how to save money and protect yourself. You can pick up your copy in bookstores for only $19.95 or have your copy rushed to your door for the internet-only price of just $4.95. Go to Obamacare911.com to claim your copy now.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger.
Tear down this wall. Not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Recently, we had a chance to sit down with the former Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld. We talked about the emerging threat of al-Qaeda on North Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Here is the second part of our exclusive interview with Donald Rumsfeld.
To also talk to you about Guantanamo Bay. We've heard yet again recently from the president saying that he's going to close down Guantanamo Bay, but we've heard that for the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. So why can't the president close Gitmo?
Well, I guess he got in office, and one of the first things he did was announce that he was going to close it. No one ever wanted Guantanamo to exist. It was, as I phrased it back in 2001 or 2, that it's the least worst choice. And no one wants to be a jailer for the world. The goal was to repatriate these people to their home countries and have their home countries deal with them. The goal was to have the Iraqi government and the Afghan government be sufficiently capable with their justice system that they could manage that. And as a result, we kept moving people out to other countries, including Iraq and Afghanistan and their home countries. It's perfectly rational that he would want to close it. It's also understandable that he's been incapable of doing it because it's tough to find a better choice for each one of those individuals.
Certainly appears that way. I want to mention your book here, Rumsfeld Rules. You just spoke to a very large crowd, a very receptive crowd. Happy to hear you talk. You know, one of the Rumsfeld rules we've talked about in the past is the fact that weakness is provocative, and time again it has invited adventures that strength might have well deterred. We're looking at this in the view of the situation with Iran right now and this supposedly secret deal between the Obama administration and the Rouhani government. But there are a lot of people who are saying that Obama is getting played right now in this discussion. Do you agree with that?
Well, only time will tell. It seems to me that it's perfectly understandable that people would be hopeful when the government changes hands and there's a new president. And it's not unreasonable for people to test that. On the other hand, the real power in the country is with the Ayatollahs, and they haven't changed. They're exactly the same people. They're the ones who've been aggressively pursuing the development of nuclear weapons. They have no desire to discontinue that. And the rest of the region is very concerned about it, not just the United States, but the UN, the Saudi Arabia, Israel, any number of countries. The Sunni-Shia divide that exists in that part of the world is a fundamental and serious one. And it is, I think, reasonable to assume that if the so-called international community, which is really not a community at all, it's just a bunch of countries not acting in unison, if it allows that to happen, you're going to end up seeing that being an Iranian nuclear weapon. You very likely are going to end up seeing other countries in the region develop nuclear weapons. Sure. And there are other countries that are perfectly capable of it, and there are countries around the world that are willing to assist them with nuclear programs. And that is not a good thing for the world. It's not a good thing for the region, it's not a good thing for America, and it's not a good thing for the world.
Who do you think would be the next country, say Iran is able to obtain a nuclear weapon? Who do you think would be the next country to really earnestly pursue that goal?
Well, the Saudis are a possibility. Clearly Egypt is a possibility. There are any number of countries, and there are other countries that'll be helpful.
Yeah, it has been referred to as a domino effect, maybe if Iran does get the nuclear weapon. I want to borrow a question from the last round of presidential debates, and that is, what do you think is the greatest security threat to the United States right now?
I think the greatest security threat is the fact that the United States of America is behaving in a way that is sending a signal of future weakness on the part of the United States. To the extent we go into decline, to the extent we manage our economy like a third world country, to the extent we manage it like Western Europe, which is model it after that, which is a failed model without question, it sends a signal out across the globe that we as a country will not be able to contribute to a more peaceful and stable world. I mean, when I went to Washington in the Eisenhower administration, for Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson administrations, we were spending 10% of gross domestic product on defense. Today we're spending less than 4%. And the entitlements have ballooned to take over and demand more and more money, and there's no way we can keep on spending trillions of dollars we don't have. It just doesn't work. And our allies in Western Europe are now below 2% of GDP going to defense. So that vacuum we're creating is going to be filled, and it'll be filled by countries that don't have our values and clearly are adverse to our interests.
Now, during the debate, Mitt Romney said that Russia may be our greatest threat, and some people laughed at him for saying that, but maybe he's been vindicated somewhat based on Putin's behavior, especially when you look at it towards Syria.
Well, I mean, there's no question but that Putin is punching above his weight, as they say in the boxing field, and the United States is punching well below our weight. We've made a series of diplomatic mistakes. He's a tough, aggressive operator. And he's, I guess, it's not surprising that people will bend to his will if he's willing to throw that weight around.
And last question for you, aside from a change at the top, meaning the White House, do you see anything changing the trajectory that you just mentioned?
Oh, I do. I think that America's a great country, and we do not need to go into decline. I forget who said it, but someone said that great nations, if they die from suicide. And they're not defeated, but they make the mistakes internally. And we've, as a nation, been kind of able to self-correct. And I expect that what we'll see is self-correction taking place, because we ought not to leave a vacuum that is filled by people that are fundamentally don't have our values and are against our interests.
All right, fair enough. Donald Rumsfeld, the book right now, still out, of course. Many other books as well. You can get them on Amazon, but the most recent one is Rumsfeld Rules. Never too early to get a good Father's Day present. Also,
thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Donald Rumsfeld in our exclusive interview there with him. Of course, what do you think about the Secretary of Defense's, the former Secretary of Defense's comments there on Iran, Syria, and the United States? We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on Twitter and Facebook. Tweet me directly at JohnB_Newsmax, also at Newsmax TV. You can email us at connect@newsmaxtv.com and find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Newsmax. We'll be right back with more on America's Forum right after this.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. You need to watch out because thousands of new Obamacare rules are currently being implemented, and few know what the law says or does. Listen to what Senator Max Baucus, one of the authors of the Obamacare law, recently said.
I tell you, I just see a huge train wreck coming down, and I don't see any results yet. I just see a huge train wreck.
He's right. So protect yourself from this train wreck. Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. Join more than 500,000 Americans who have their copy.
Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare311.com. Obamacare311.com. That's Obamacare311.com.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep, but it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight. Nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind: to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
Learn about our risk-free trial offer at prostaterevive.com/Jim.
Meet John and Nancy. They've spent their lives working hard and saving money, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But unfortunately, all that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. Then one day, John and Nancy picked up a free copy of Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. This book revealed 24 little-known investments that put them back on track to a happy and secure retirement. Get your free copy of Powerful Secrets at myfinancialage.org.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. With us right now on the phone is Newsmax.com managing editor Tim Colley. It's great to have you back with us, Tim.
Hey, great to be here, John.
All right, so taking a look at the website right now, big story that we've been covering here today. This is the 5th anniversary, or coming off the 5th anniversary to the day of the stimulus package, the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act. This has been widely panned here by conservatives. here. What's your take on the story, and who do you think had the most damning criticism of this stimulus 5 years on?
I definitely think Boehner had some very good points because he's pointing to the essence of it. Where's the jobs? They promised coming out of the gate in 2009 this was going to create 3.3 million jobs. Right now, best estimates, they've got 1.5 million jobs that may have been created and or saved, which is not 3.3 million jobs created. So that gets right to the heart of it. They hit 50% of what they had promised.
Yeah, and there's a good tweet here you guys included in the article from Senator Ted Cruz. In 5 years, it looks like President Obama's stimulus did actually create jobs. Unfortunately, they're all at the IRS and the NSA. Cruz making a joke there, but Tim, I can imagine that within the administration, there's not a lot of folks laughing about this right now.
No, not at all. And he goes to a good point. I mean, the idea behind this was to create a lot of public works jobs. In other words, grow the government. There was all kinds of GOP ideas at the time, like a payroll tax holiday. They wanted to push through that would have created more private sector jobs. So what you're left with was a lot of road work that in many cases, people couldn't really see. And when they could see, they weren't that convinced by it.
Yeah, and have you seen anything in the reporting today that talks about what this might mean for the potential of future stimulus packages?
I don't think right now anybody's talking about it or anybody seriously thinks a stimulus could get moved at all through Congress. It just wouldn't happen. So it's a no-brainer going into it.
All right, another story that I know you guys are closely watching on the web here, and I'm going to get to it in just a second. This is a story we also featured here about these investigations into these 3 different state-run exchanges, part of the Obamacare program, one in Oregon, one in Maryland, and another one as well. Tim, was there anything in here that made this seem like more than just election year politics, that there might be a real significant interest that the GOP could obtain by getting this investigation out there?
Oh, I know Democrats certainly feel that way. There is no good way to spin this right now going into 2014 elections. In fact, the Democratic strategy seems to be to sort of take the Republican ideas and say, yes, we've got to fix this and or reform it or not even talk about it. But that is, the big point here is, yeah, they've got a lot of potential jobs lost, according to the CBO. They've got exchanges that aren't working. Depending on what state you're talking about, they've got a lot of fudged numbers. That it's very unclear when they release numbers if these are actual people who are fully signed up and are getting the full benefits of Obamacare right now, such as they are.
Another story that was interesting to read too is Newt Gingrich teeing off on John Kerry, basically telling him that he thinks he should resign. Kerry's also been accused of trying maybe a little bit too hard to win the Nobel Peace Prize. What do you think about Newt's comments?
Yeah, I think Newt makes an excellent point here because, Kerry went way overboard in his remarks about global warming. You would think we would be running a Soylent Green factory tomorrow, the way he was talking about it. He was comparing it to world wars, apocalypse and stuff like that. It was an extreme, very extreme statement. I think Newt just jumped on that.
Yeah, Newt has an ability to just seize on sentiment in a way like that. Kerry, questionable timing of those statements right now, to say the least, considering the discussions he's having with Iran. Another story, if I could take a personal privilege here, Tim, and talk about our interview that we had up on the website Sunday and yesterday, or the holiday weekend, with Lech Walesa. We had the chance to sit down and interview the former president of Poland, a man credited with breaking communism's back. Did you have a chance to check out the interview and wonder what you thought about it?
Oh, I thought, again, I haven't seen an interview with Lech Walesa for quite a while, but he comes across as a extremely wise man. I mean, even some of the minor points he was making about spending taxpayer money to erect a monument to him or some of the other leaders of the 1989 revolution, I just thought were incredible. It was a great interview. Kudos to you, John.
Well, I don't want to take too much credit for it. We had a lot of preparation with the producers that helped us out a lot with that interview. But it was fascinating to talk to him because he still clearly understands not only his role in what happened, but also the role of the United States today. And I thought it was very telling to hear him talk about President Obama and his unwillingness to kind of take the reins of the superpower the way that he feels like a U.S. president should.
Yeah, you certainly hear it in Europe, you hear it in the Middle East, you hear it in Asia. There are leaders who are quite concerned that Obama is retreating from the world stage, that the U.S. isn't going to be out there to guarantee everything from sea lanes to stability and arms control trafficking and stuff like that. He's right on the same page with, again, leaders ranging from the Saudis in the Middle East to the Japanese and Asia.
And a stern warning, too, about protectionism and isolationism, too, because he clearly believes the United States still has an important role to play in the world. And, Tim, before we let you go here, I want to talk to you real quickly about a story you're going to be posting on Newsmax.com real shortly about what this minimum wage increase is going to do to employment. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the CBO is releasing a study. It's already up. We're getting the story putting together now. It's literally breaking. But they're saying if the minimum wage is increased to $10.10, as the administration is pushing for, it could cost anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million jobs over the next 2 to 3 years. This is huge. This is another report. If you recall, the CBO put out that report about 2 weeks ago saying that Obamacare could cost anywhere from 2 to 3 million jobs over the next 5 years. So this is another blow to the administration's policies and their agenda coming from, the CBO, which is a very, very well-respected nonpartisan office.
Certainly another damning report coming from the CBO. Tim, we'll look for that on the website when you get it up. Thanks so much for joining us today. Of course, talk to us about what you think about what we have up on Newsmax.com or what you've seen here on the show. We'd love to hear from you. You can tweet me directly at JohnB_Newsmax, also at Newsmax TV. Those are our Twitter handles, best way to reach us. So you can also connect to us on email at connect@NewsmaxTV.com and on Facebook, Facebook.com/NewsmaxTV. And we come right back. We'll have more here for you on America's Forum. I'm John Bachman. We'll be right back after this.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits211.com. At MyBenefits211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits211.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits211.com. MyBenefits211.com.
Heart disease is the biggest killer disease in America, and this doesn't surprise me. We are addicted to starches, sugars, fatty meats, and salt. People who live in countries with little heart disease eat very differently. One way some people stay heart healthy is by following what is known as the caveman or Stonehenge diet, so named because of its similarity to the way our prehistoric ancestors ate. People who follow this type of diet live off local fruits and root vegetables and get their protein mostly from fish and wild game they shoot themselves. Now, since most of us don't hunt or fish for all our protein, here are some simple tips on how you can start to eat like a caveman, modern day style. First, fill up on fruits and vegetables. Eat them first and you'll be less hungry. Feast on fish, which is rich in nutrients but not in calories. Choose fatty fish like mackerel, herring, sardines, and salmon, which are rich in heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Get out and go for a walk. Remember, our ancestors were hunters and gatherers, so they didn't spend their time sitting in front of a TV or computer all day. If you live more like a caveman or a cave woman, your heart will love you for it. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thank you for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger.
Tear down this wall. Not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Before we hand off the baton to the folks in New York in our studios there, we want to take a quick look back at some of the comments that we received from our viewers today based on some of the stories we covered for you here on America's Forum. One of our Facebook friends, James H., says, why don't members of Congress get people jobs and stop worrying about something they can't change? James, thanks for writing in. Text P says it's a pitiful dilemma. Worst thing for Americans in years other than all of our war heroes dying or for unjust causes in foreign lands. Also, Randall B. says Obamacare is a hoax, second only to Obama himself. And on Twitter, about the Iran nuke deal, Jackie Vassar says Iran doesn't want an alliance with America. It wants to destroy America. How do you feel about the alliance from a country like that? Thank you very much to all of our friends who wrote in to us on Facebook and on Twitter. We appreciate it. Your comments are always welcome here on America's Forum. Time to check in now and with our New York studios and Joe Concha, who's filling in for Steve Malsberg today. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
JB, it's actually 40 degrees here. Can you believe that? First time since, I believe, September.
40 degrees sounds a little cold, Joe, to us, but I'm glad to hear you guys are thawing out. Tell us what you got on the show up there.
All right. Well, we got a great show lined up for you. You know, we got Rick Unger from Forbes magazine, Ron Christie, Republican strategist. We have Tom Rice, a congressman from South Carolina, talking about the president and perhaps his overreach in terms of executive power. We have some great topics in the media front as well. Jared Max from ESPN talks about that controversial NBC interview with Bodie Miller. We have Andrew Carell, editor-in-chief of Mediaite. We're going to talk about binge watching and the willpower that may have to be employed when House of Cards is now on Netflix. Do you watch it every week?
How many episodes deep are you in House of Cards right now?
One, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to watch it once a week. The willpower is there. My wife, not so successful. I believe she's on episode 8. She prefers to binge. So we're going to talk about that whole dilemma that could be striking households nationwide.
It happened in my household. My wife got ahead of me, but I have caught up to her now. House of Cards, one of those shows that's addicting. And Joe, I really admire your willpower to wait to week by week. A traditionalist, a TV traditionalist trying to keep things real. I appreciate that.
JB, I'm only 4 days in. Trust me, I could wilt at any time.
All right. Well, good luck with that, and let us know how it goes. We look forward to catching the show. Joe, it's great talking to you, and have a great show today.
All right, John. Stay warm.
All right. Well, we will try to do just that. We want to thank everybody for joining us here on America's Forum, here on Newsmax TV today. We do want to encourage everybody once again to make sure you write us. This is America's Forum, and we want to hear from you. It can't be a show without your voices participating in the conversation as well. Contact me directly, JohnB_Newsmax. Also, anyone here at Newsmax TV will read your tweets if you tweet us directly at Newsmax TV. And email us, connect@newsmaxtv.com, and find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Newsmax. It's been a pleasure spending the day with everybody here. I'll be back tomorrow with more of America's Forum. And as we told you, Joe Concha is filling in for Steve today in New York. He'll have more on the latest and most important news stories of the day. We'll be back with more here on America's Forum tomorrow with Dick Morris and the president and founder of the Real Wealth Network, Kathy Fettke, to talk to us about the real estate market and how student loans could be impacting the housing market as well. America's Forum will roll on tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.
52-year-old male complaining of chest pains.
Clear. If you suffer cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, you have just a 7% chance of survival.
Hi, my name is Dr. Crandall. As a cardiologist, I've dedicated the last 30 years to helping my patients win the fight against heart disease. That's why I wrote the Simple Heart Cure, to show you how easy it is to identify early warning signs, make simple heart-healthy changes, and reverse heart disease in just 90 days. You'll discover how to reduce your risk of heart attack by 61%.